Naruto x Lotm, A Fool's Errand. Author. Hoin_Kyoma. Chapter 21-40. Najinaga walked towards Tachibana with the other bandits still confused as to why their leader was acting the way he was, but they all unsheathed their blades. Najinaga rushed towards Tachibana alone with his sword drawn, but instead of running away or buying time, Tachibana rushed back into the fight. Najinaga's swing was well telegraphed and slow because of his injury, so Tachibana was able to dodge the first one and get up close to Najinaga. And before Najinaga could react, Tachibana kicked the kunai that was stuck in his body to drill it even deeper. Using Najinaga's body as footing, Tachibana jumped back once again. Najinaga growled in pain and was about to pull out the kunai embedded into his body, but almost on instinct Tachibana threw a bunch of shuriken in his direction to distract him. Najinaga easily blocked them with his sword, and it was at this point that they all realized that Tachibana was a shinobi. One of the guards even shouted, "The children are missing. Catch him. Don't let him go." Najinaga rushed towards Tachibana once again to swing his sword, this time even taking care not to telegraph his attack so much since Tachibana was stronger than he appeared to be. Except as soon as Najinaga arrived in slashing distance, Tachibana pulled on a wire that he was holding. Wire? Najinaga thought with confusion. Except he didn't get the time to process what he saw since he felt an unholy amount of pain on the left side of his body. Tachibana had pulled out the kunai from Najinaga's body because it was attached to the wire. Najinaga swung his sword at Tachibana, but he just caught it between his fingers and thumbs since there was no strength behind the swing. With a simple tug, Tachibana pulled away the sword from Najinaga's hands as the man lay on the ground bleeding out. All the other bandits froze in place, becoming stunned at how easily their captain had died, in seconds. Even Tachibana was a little stunned. His stomach quenched due to disgust as he saw Najinaga's dying gaze. He could see the betrayal in them, until they turned hollow since he died. Such fragile life is. Tachibana did his best to keep a smile on his face as he spoke calmly, but his voice quivered. "When'll you help me? After I die? Or when you'll join me in Pure Land?" The bandits snapped out of their confusion and immediately rushed towards Tachibana. Kill him. The death of their captain had confused the heck out of them and enraged them like nothing else could have. They all rushed towards Tachibana, who looked at it all with a smile on his face, even though it was twitching as he looked at them and bowed. "Thank you for attending my show." Almost immediately, everyone heard kunais flying through the air. The kunai pierced into the heads of a few bandits before they realized what was happening and ducked away. But it was too late. Explosion tag. BOOOOOOMMMMMM asterisk BOOOOOMMMMM asterisk BOOOOOMMMMM asterisk BOOOOOMMMMM. Multiple explosion tags went off, taking down nearby bandits with them as Tachibana got up from his bow and nearly wretched at the disgusting scene of bodiless parts and partless bodies in front of him. But he worked hard to keep his smile, even though his gaze held boundless sorrow. A cursed world. That's what this is. I'd a nice life before all this. Why'd I get reincarnated here? Tachibana saw a few people crawling because they'd lost their limbs in the explosion. Before he could act and put them out of their misery, Maruboshi jumped down from a tree and tossed a kunai which pierced the man's head, killing him instantly. Tachibana felt burdened by all the lives he'd just helped take. He didn't want to stay in this place anymore when only a few minutes ago he was laughing, smiling, singing and dancing with all the bandits here. Cursed world. Maruboshi walked up to Tachibana, looked at the dead Najinaga and nodded after patting his back. "Good job. I was going to help you fight him, but you worked efficiently. Hold on to this, I found them in the camp," Maruboshi said, giving Tachibana a scroll and sending him out of the camp. "Just outside the camp, on the cliff, I left the children who you saved there. The rest were already sold. But those documents list out the sellers and the next sale. Look through them. You were right, they were samurais." Tachibana gave one last look at the carnage in front of him before turning around and leaving. As he walked he cursed himself several times but then shook his head and suppressed it all. He took out the scroll that Maruboshi had given him and read through it. The scroll was the record journal of some random bandit. It seems they really were from the land of iron after all. Although they'd gone rouge and had bounties placed on their heads. They were unhappy with the land of iron submitting to the Shinobi nation so easily and wanted to break the deal by killing the messengers between the two villages. It was also why they got into the business of selling kids in the land of fire. They wanted to kill the Shinobi team that would be sent to investigate them so that they could sour the relationship between the nations further. It was also why they were so obvious with their tracks. They never intended not to be found at all. They wanted to kill one team and then leave to another spot and repeat the same thing until the deal fell through. I guess each village has its own Danzo. No, these guys are still slightly better than Danzo. They don't kill the shinobi of their own village. They only killed the shinobi of other villages. Sigh, this is just depressing. Tachibana stuffed the scroll back into his dress. That was when he noticed he'd been dragging along the kunai that he had pierced and pulled out of Najinaga's chest. Tachibana looked at it for a few minutes and then examined himself. Several drops of blood had gotten on his dress. He pulled out a scroll and stored away the kunai along with the wire attached to it. Fucked up world. When Tachibana finally scaled the cliff and saw the children who were huddled around a fire, he felt his burden ease slightly. Not all of it was taken away, but it felt more manageable somehow. Crack. A twig under his feet cracked and the children finally noticed him. The dark night, combined with the red glow from the campfire that cast long shadows on Tachibana's painted face, caused a shiver to run through their spine. A brave one quickly picked up a stick which he pointed at Tachibana and shouted, "Go away. We're under the protection of a shinobi-san." Tachibana found it amusing as a well-meaning smile showed up on his face automatically as a plan graced his mind. And then, shocking the 5 children, Tachibana used the body flicker jutsu to appear behind the boy and grab his stick and neck in a lock. Ha 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 ha, now that I'm here no one can stop me anymore. The kids immediately gathered tears in their eyes. Their once bright eyes fell dull. Many even imagined their deaths, but Tachibana's next actions surprised them. You shall be punished for threatening the almighty fool. Your punishment ISSSSSSS. Facing the tickly monster RRRRRR. Soon the cliff was a mess of children rolling on the ground, getting dirt in their hair and dress as they laughed. Some nearly laughed to death at how much Tachibana tortured them. Yes, this is the life I'd like to live. Tachibana and Maruboshi arrived at the village gates and weren't stopped this time. In fact, the guard left his post to rush at them when they came into view. Hiroki, Tsubasa, Haruto, Kato, Daiki. The guard checked all the boys before ringing the bell at the guard post to signal their return. The doors of several houses opened up and people first peered through the gates, but once they noticed no threat they rushed towards the children that had returned. Several parents collapsed to their knees as they hugged their children who were crying into their shoulders, relieved that they'd finally arrived home. Tachibana noticed the heartbroken looks of the other parents. But before they could mistake or misunderstand anything, he spoke calmly, "I have some good news even if a little bit of it is disappointing." The parents who weren't smiling immediately looked at Tachibana, hanging on to his every word with hope, "Although these are the only kids we've found till now. We do know what happened with the other kids. It's just that the mission is currently above our pay grade. We'll quickly go back to Konoha to send a more capable group of shinobi who can handle the mission better." The other parents leaned into their family for support and a few broke down too. Soon both the parents began thanking Tachibana and Maruboshi for helping them find their children. Their thankfulness reached a stage where the village head had to extract Maruboshi and Tachibana from the crowd. "Thank you for helping our little village," the village head said with his head on the floor and tears in his eyes. "It's all right. You don't have to be so thankful to us. We only did it because we were paid for the mission." Tachibana tried to refuse the kindness, but the old man rightfully did not buy it and repeatedly thanked them until they excused themselves to go back to Konoha. The village head tried to keep them in the village for a night to hold a celebratory feast, but Maruboshi explained how time was of the essence in this mission and they needed to get back to Konoha to help find the other kids. Although reluctant, the village chief nodded and let them leave. Back in Konoha, Maruboshi told Tachibana to leave to rest and that he'd handle all of the aftermath. Tachibana nodded, thanked him and then left. After taking a cold shower to relax his muscles, Tachibana soon collapsed into his bed. It was only early in the evening when they'd returned, but Tachibana wasn't in any mood to study sealing right now. And so he drifted off into sleep under the warmth of his comforter. In a deep dark sea, a tiny body struggled under the immense pressure the water was applying on him as he desperately tried to break through the surface. The child felt its oxygen levels deplete as it tried to swim to the surface. This sudden storm had broken much of his confidence as he only hoped for a miracle to occur. Which way's up? Wasn't there a trick to figure out things like this? Ergig. I should have paid more attention to Maruboshi's teachings. Trapped underwater, Tachibana did his best to figure out which way was up so that he could save his life. Why am I in the sea suddenly? Wasn't I just in Konoha? Did someone kidnap me? And did their boat capsize? Tachibana's throat tightened as he forced himself to hold his breath. His heart pounded against his chest due to the situation and the lack of oxygen. His head throbbed due to the confusion and his body began to ache. Just as Tachibana felt he was going to drown, he saw a series of lights in one direction. He felt an instinctual connection to these colorful lights, as if they were a guiding beacon of hope in this tumultuous situation. Tachibana quickly swam through the raging waters, and just as he felt he could no longer continue, he broke through the surface. He greedily took in deep breaths as he assessed the situation around him. And it felt worse. He actually was in the sea. Although the salty water hadn't given him hope for it to be much else, Tachibana still hoped this was just an elaborate trick. But looking around the never-ending darkness of the sky and the ocean, Tachibana felt weak and powerless. This storm, I don't think I'll survive for even a few more minutes. As he lost hope, the colorful lights that had previously helped save him wrapped around him and gave him warmth. These lights, what are they? Why are they helping me? And that was when it suddenly clicked in his head. I'm dreaming. As soon as Tachibana realized that, his eyes shot wide open and he woke up in his bed that had become a little wet because of his sweat. A nightmare. No, that was my spiritual intuition warning me about something that's about to come. Although I was in a stormy sea, I will have a way out as long as I don't give up hope. Or at least a way to protect myself. Tachibana stared out the window, gazing at the dark sky dotted with stars and the giant moon. What a crazy world, even the moon was made by a human. Or at least a half-human. Single quote ... I can't lose hope. A few hours ago. Knock knock. Come in. Maruboshi opened the door and walked into the Hokage office, kneeling immediately to show his respect. Oh, you've finished your mission with Tachibana-kun, Kosuke. Tell me, how was it? Yes, Hokage-sama. Although a little hard for his first mission, it was a fine mission that tested all of Tachibana-san's abilities. Hard. Simple bandits were difficult to deal with. No, Hokage-sama. That is why I've rushed here after the completion of the mission. Hiruzen's face took on a serious look as he sat up straight in his chair and asked quickly, what happened? Please read these, Hokage-sama. Maruboshi said and handed over a storage seal to Hiruzen. Hiruzen took the seal, quickly extracted a few scrolls from it and began to read through them. As he read further, his face fell. First, it was only the luster in his eyes, but then it was also his elderly smile. Eventually, Hiruzen was left with a slightly angry face that had a prominent frown etched on it. I see. I understand. Were there any other strange conditions to report, Kosuke? Quote. Don't hesitate. I'm sure we only want what's in the best interests of the people living in the village, Hiruzen said calmly. Well, it's about that strange divination technique Tachibana-san uses, Maruboshi said, trailing off into silence. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed as he asked, have you figured out anything? Quote. Not exactly, but it seems to be fairly accurate, Maruboshi said, explaining how Tachibana deduced that the bandits were actually samurai from the land of iron and how he played a betting game of coin tossing and guessed the side it would land on. I see. Hiruzen nodded, taking a puff out of his smoking pipe. He stood up and walked to the window as he looked outward, at the village. Have you asked him about the technique Kosuke? Yes, Hokage-sama. But all I got in response was that all those who become a blessed of the Fool gain the ability to divine the future. They just have to pray to the Fool God and show their sincerity. Hiruzen frowned. Is he trying to hide a secret technique? But why reveal it if he wants to keep it hidden? Naive. No, from Kosuke's words, he doesn't seem like the type to be naive. Hiruzen sat back in his chair as he ordered, Kosuke, you may leave. Thank you for completing this mission this time. I look forward to the development of your team. I will also assign the right team to look into these missing kids so you don't have to worry about them. Maruboshi smiled and nodded, thank you Hokage-sama, before leaving the room. As soon as the door closed, the grandfatherly smile on Hiruzen's face vanished. Instead, he looked towards the ceiling and spoke calmly, ask the Anbu team guarding Tachibana-Rei to capture him without his knowledge. Bring him to Inoichi. Tell him, I want his report on everything about the boy. The Anbu who were hiding in the ceiling heard Hiruzen's words and one of them immediately departed towards Tachibana's house. Tachibana looked at the man in front of him. This is a dream. Excuse me, young man, could you answer a few of my questions? Inoichi asked politely while holding a clipboard of papers with questions. How? Is there a Byander from the darkness pathway in this world? No, this is a Yamanaka. Tachibana's thoughts froze when there was a system notification in front of him. System has detected that the host's body of heart and mind is being interfered with. The host can choose what to do. Closing square bracket. Option 1. Use the system to block the Yamanaka from reviewing your memories. Closing square bracket. Option 2. Play along. Closing square bracket. Can you modify the memories that the Yamanaka sees? System. No, that is not possible. However, the system recommends using option 2 for the best results. Closing square bracket. Won't that reveal my abilities as a Byander? No. People who are not Byanders cannot understand how Byander abilities work. They will develop a reasoning for the way they work out of their own knowledge. Closing square bracket. I see. Thank you. Focusing back on the Yamanaka in front of him, Tachibana with unfocused eyes spoke kindly as if he was being lulled into a sweet dream. Yes. Could you tell me your name? Tachibana. Tachibana-Rei. Inoichi looked at his clipboard for a few minutes before nodding and then asking a different question. Are you a boy? No. Inoichi frowned, but then Tachibana continued. I'm a man. A true man. Inoichi smiled and nodded while looking at the kid who didn't fully reach his chest in height. But soon his face turned serious as he asked a new question. Do you know how your ability to divine about things works? Tachibana nodded animatedly as he spoke with a loud voice, the Almighty Fool gives me the appropriate divination result. He knows all the mysteries of the world. Nothing can be hidden from his gaze. Inoichi frowned, but he nodded and asked, could you show me how you do it? Yes. Do you want me to perform the divination for you, uncle? Uncle. My boy, I'm only in my early 40s. No, if you think about it a little, I should be able to see your memories. Tachibana frowned and said, bad uncle. It is not good to look at other people's memories. Inoichi became a little shocked but then shook his head and with a soft smile explained, I promise to keep this a secret between the two of us. After all, don't you want to show me how great the Almighty Fool is? Tachibana pretended to think deeply before speaking childishly, okay uncle. And then he thought about the time he used divination to detect the footsteps of the bandits were in fact the footsteps of samurai. Inoichi observed the memory very carefully, trying to discern anything irregular in the memory. But soon he frowned. There doesn't seem to be anything different happening. It's not a jutsu for sure because he doesn't even use chakra. Perhaps he's using nature chakra. Something like the fourth and Jiraiya-sama. Like they did in the war. But even the fourth had markings around his eyes when he used the sage mode. Could he have a way of controlling nature chakra? A Kekkei Genkai perhaps. I have to get a closer look. Inoichi looked at Tachibana, who was looking at the memory still, and sneakily performed a jutsu. Memory immersion jutsu. Inoichi vanished from his spot and suddenly found himself in Tachibana's place when he performed the divination to learn about the samurai's footprints. I can't feel any chakra being used. Not even nature chakra. But how does this work then? Inoichi scanned around Tachibana's body to learn more about the situation. He saw Tachibana using cogitation to put himself to sleep while his mind stayed awake, and then waking up to see the result of the divination. After some thought, he soon concluded with a theory. I see. When he uses the pendulum to divine things, he forces his brain to cut off all sensory contact with the rest of the world. Once this happens, his brain works at a large speed to study the question he's asking and spits out a solution. To give him this response, his body subconsciously manipulates the pendulum. It's not a supernatural happening at all. It's just a trick. And the almighty fool probably is a figment of his imagination that he clings onto to explain his abilities to himself. I can't understand how he cuts off his brain's contact with the rest of the world, but it can be regarded as a talent. I should look at other divinations of his to check my theory just in case. Ending the memory immersion jutsu, Inoichi asked Tachibana to show him various other divinations, and Tachibana did exactly that. Inoichi used the memory immersion techniques in those memories too and found his theory to be suitable. Well, this explains it. Thank you for answering my questions, Tachibana-kun. No problem, uncle. Thank you for spending time with me. Such a nice child. Why isn't my daughter like this? Why does she keep thinking about that Uchiha kid? Sigh, I should leave. Hokage-sama is probably waiting for me. Ending his mind-reading jutsu, Inoichi exited Tachibana's body and woke up in the office where Tachibana and he were. Any results, Inoichi? Hiruzen asked while holding his smoking pipe and blowing out a ring cloud. Yes, Hokage-sama. Inoichi nodded and continued to explain. The divination technique that Tachibana-kun uses cannot be considered a jutsu, it can be considered as a talent. Talent. Yes, Hokage-sama. Tachibana-kun unconsciously cuts off his brain's connection to the outside world so that he can use more of his brain to think about the problem and arrive at a solution faster. It is all his own genius. Is that so? Hiruzen said, but then asked another question. But then why does he use the pendulum? And the fool? Because it's a tool that keeps him focused. For example, the Nara clan members often adopt a particular posture to think deeply. Even though the posture does not hold any significance for molding chakra, it helps them think. The almighty fool is probably a similar thing. So it is a crutch. Precisely. If Tachibana-kun can tap into this state of fast thinking without his pendulum, he can improve his skill. I see, Hiruzen said and finally relaxed a little. Tachibana, who was listening to all this on the side, pretended he was asleep. Of course, since he couldn't fool the Hokage and the Jonin around that he was asleep, he took the help of cogitation to remain half asleep, even though he'd woken up when Inoichi entered his mind. What a nice explanation. But I'll still keep up my act as the fool because I still need believers to make my anchors in the future. That was when Tachibana heard Hiruzen say something else. If he's such a genius, what would be a way to train him so that he becomes free of his crutches and flowers as a genius? Inoichi paused to think for a few seconds before coming up with a reasonable plan. It might be best if he's forced into situations where he has to constantly think about solving a problem. Perhaps even using divination repeatedly to get used to that state. Researching jutsus and other such complex problems would help too. I see. Hiruzen nodded to think about a few things before nodding to Inoichi. Thank you for protecting the village, Inoichi. I will offer you a bonus for this month. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Inoichi politely bowed. You may take Tachibana-kun back to his home. Leave him as he was found. Hiruzen ordered the Anbu who were kneeling. They nodded and within a blink vanished from the room with Tachibana. Phew, that was hard work. Will I be involved in researching more from now on? Hopefully, Hiruzen doesn't put me in dangerous combat situations to turn me into a sharper weapon. That won't happen, right? Back home, Tachibana woke up slowly as rays of light fell on his face, disturbing him from his short sleep. Yesterday was wild. I mean, I get Hiruzen being worried about me knowing things I should not with the help of divination, but isn't this a little too much? What if there really was a god protecting me? What if they upset him? Tisk. I guess even though there's the cult of Jashin in this world, people just treat them as weirdos. Will their opinion change once they come across a deity's decent? Sigh, what a life. Being suspected by the village you work in. Isn't this the same as telling me they don't trust me? Getting out of bed, Tachibana freshened himself and walked to the Hokage tower to meet Maruboshi. You're late. Maruboshi complained as he spotted Tachibana walking to the Hokage tower. Tell that to the Hokage who kept me awake for so long last night. Yeah, I had a few nightmares. That seemed to have caught Maruboshi off guard since he immediately surrendered and took on a compassionate look. I understand. We taking a new mission today. Of course we are. Unless you want to go back to doing those D-rank missions again. No way. No way. Tachibana shook his head in disagreement. I worked so hard to get the rights to perform missions. I don't want to become like you. Carving figurines all day. The veins on Maruboshi's forehead twitched as his posture stiffened, but then deciding to be the bigger man he shook his head and calmed down. It takes a truly peaceful man to delve into the intricacies of art, Maruboshi explained as they stepped into the Hokage tower. If you'd said, it takes a truly peaceful man to delve into the intricacies of a fart, I'd have believed you. Art can be made only when you're passionate about something. Not when you're half dead. PFFFTTTT. Fart. Ha 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 ha. A random voice tried to control their laughter unsuccessfully. Naruto. Shut it. It's rude to eavesdrop. A girl shouted while closing Naruto's mouth. See, old man, they agree with me too. Maruboshi looked at all the kids with displeasure and Kakashi stepped in to apologize. My apologies, Maruboshi-san. Ah, it's all right, Kakashi-kun. How are you doing now? I heard you quit the Anbu not long ago. As soon as those words dropped, Tachibana saw all the kids in his team look at him with surprise. What's Anbu, Kakashi-sensei? Is it something related to the book you always read? Naruto innocently asked. Sasuke instantly turned his face away to hide his laughter while Sakura blushed and smacked Naruto's head. Anbu are the Hokage's guards, you fool. Huh, the old man's guards. Why does he need guards? Isn't he the strongest because he's the Hokage? Naruto complained causally. Kakashi and Maruboshi looked at each other and exchanged a glance that only meant one thing. So you've got a student like that, huh? Yes. He's a little dumb but he's good at heart. Mine's not dumb but he talks back a lot. I hope you have an easier time in the future. You too. By the way, who are you? Naruto asked, walking up close to Tachibana and looking at him with a frown. I can't seem to remember you. Are you new in this village? Kakashi also lent an ear to their conversation since he found Maruboshi coming out of retirement to take on a student interesting. I'm Tachibana Rei. I joined Konoha only a month ago. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. But a month ago. And you're already a ninja? Naruto asked with surprise. Yep. I'm good, aren't I? I can already perform the Academy's 3 jutsu. Seriously? Naruto asked with shock. It took me close to 6 years to learn them. Wanna see and compare who's the best at it? Tachibana asked for fun. Naruto nodded. I'll go first. His fingers quickly formed a single seal and he shouted, Clone Jutsu. A puff of smoke later, everyone was greeted with a single clone of Naruto. It looked exactly like him. Even Sasuke was a little surprised with how good it looked. Tachibana smiled and said, that's a good challenge. But look at this. Quickly forming 3 hand seals, Tachibana performed the same jutsu, Clone Jutsu. With another puff of smoke, a fragile-looking Tachibana appeared at his side. Except Maruboshi, who'd expected it, everyone else became a little dumbfounded at how bad it looked, but Naruto only cheered on. That's quite good for a month. I hope you are able to become as good as me someday. As good as you. I'll cross you before you know it. Tachibana challenged. Naruto, seeing this, got even more fired up. No way will I let you surpass me. I'll become the Hokage someday. And I'll become the god of Shinobi someday. Tachibana stated with enthusiasm. Suddenly Naruto felt like he was at a loss of words. What's a god of Shinobi? He's the god that all Shinobi pray to for victory in battle. This position belonged to the first Hokage. None other than Hashirama Senju. With a simple clap, he could grow an entire forest. An entire forest? Seriously? Naruto asked with wide eyes. That was when the gate to the mission distribution office opened, and after the previous team walked away, Hiruzen called out from inside. Come in, all of you. Maruboshi and Kakashi walked into the hall, with their teams, with a little doubt about why they were called together. As soon as Naruto entered, he shouted, "Old man. I want a B-rank mission this time. I'm bored of pulling weeds and painting houses." Hiruzen looked at Kakashi, and when he nodded subtly he looked at Naruto and smiled. You're bored? Yes. I thought being a shinobi meant I could participate in glorious battles. Fight enemies that could generate an entire forest like the first Hokage. Not babysit a child. Haha, it's good that you're interested in Konoha's history, Naruto. Because you're studying well, I shall give both your teams a good mission this time. It will be dangerous too. Naruto's eyes widened while Sakura and Sasuke also straightened their backs as they heard his words. It was only Tachibana that froze. Seriously? I'm going on the mission to the land of waves with them. What the hell? I should have divined if it was good for me to leave the house today. Damn it. What's the mission, old man? Naruto asked impatiently. You have to escort a builder and architect to the land of waves and keep him safe for as long as the bridge he's building is finished. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura immediately deflated. Old man, that's just a simple escorting mission. How's that dangerous? Ahem ahem. Hiruzen coughed before sending one of the guards in the room to bring the man they had to escort into the room. As soon as the man entered the room he looked around at the two teams assigned to him and frowned. What's this? A bunch of kids are going to protect me. Naruto immediately flared up. Who are you calling a kid, you drunkard? Kakashi effortlessly picked up the kid of his teacher by the scruff of his neck and calmed him down. We're supposed to protect him, Naruto. Not attack him. They ended up accepting the mission and left the Hokage office to grab their supplies for the mission. As they gathered at the village gates, Tachibana took Kakashi's delay to brag at Naruto. I've already been on a C-rank mission. So I'm your senior, Naruto. What? Naruto shouted loudly, causing Sakura to beat him on the head to quieten him. Seriously? Naruto whispered after coming closer to Tachibana. Sakura and Sasuke also leaned in while Maruboshi stood to the side admiring their youthfulness. Ha ha ha, jealous aren't you? It was a bandit subjugation mission where children were kidnapped and sold. I and my sensei killed the bandits and saved the children too. Wah! Naruto exclaimed softly with admiration as he looked at Tachibana, who had his chin up with pride. Even Sasuke and Sakura had a little bit of admiration for Tachibana. And he enriched himself in their gazes filled with admiration. Admire me, mere mortals. For the distance between you and me is like the distance between heaven and earth. Their discussion was stopped when Kakashi arrived at the gates. Sensei, you're late. Again. Sakura complained and Kakashi gave her a gaze that seemed to be asking, who asked, but he responded politely, I had gotten lost on the path of life. Kakashi then turned to Maruboshi and introduced himself, I'm Hitaki Kakashi. A well-rounded jonin that specializes in ninjutsu. Maruboshi caught on to what Kakashi was doing and explained his strengths according to protocol, I'm Mabaroshi Kosuke. A genin that specializes in kenjutsu and ninjutsu. Team 7 all had their eyes widened, but Naruto was the only one who asked Maruboshi about it blankly, seriously, old man. Are you any good? Maruboshi laughed a little and then said coolly, I participated in both the Second War and the Third War, you tell me, am I good enough? Naruto frowned and thought hard, but after a few seconds said, I don't think I'll be able to defeat you yet, old man. So you're strong for now. Naruto's joke made everyone smile a little and they moved on without questioning Maruboshi's credentials. They all assumed there was some personal reason Maruboshi had chosen to remain a genin for so long. Naruto was the next to introduce himself. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I'm a genin that specializes in the multi-shadow clone jutsu. And I'm gonna become the Hokage Datbayo. I'm Haruno Sakura. A genin. I don't have a speciality, but I know a lot about various things and have good chakra control. Uchiha Sasuke. Genin. Specialize in shuriken jutsu. Tachibana nodded and finally introduced himself since it was his turn. I'm Tachibana Rei. I specialize in divination and am good at things a clown would be good at. Everyone except Maruboshi frowned a little when they heard Tachibana's introduction, but he explained, an example would be better. For example, let me divine if this mission we are on will be safe for us or not. Tachibana let his topaz pendulum drop and entered a half-sleep state using cogitation. Even Tazuna was a little interested in his performance since he'd never seen anything like this in his life. The mission ahead will be filled with many hardships and life-threatening danger. Tachibana repeated the statement 7 times and opened his eyes, only to freeze once he saw the pendulum spinning rapidly in the clockwise direction. Tachibana felt if he'd let the pendulum out of his hand right now it could serve as a slingshot with how fast it was spinning. Even Maruboshi, who'd gained a rudimentary understanding of Tachibana's mysterious jutsu, felt a little unsettled. Didn't Hokage-sama say to trust Tachibana's divinations? Does this mean we'll die on this mission? Should I request for backup? Whoa, what does that mean? Naruto asked in surprise. Gulp. Tachibana looked at Maruboshi and their eyes met. Maruboshi gave Tachibana a slight smile before nodding for him to continue. It means there is great danger in this mission. Enough that we're most likely going to die. Kakashi's eyes sharpened as he noticed Tachibana's and Maruboshi's interaction. Sakura paled a little, but Sasuke just clicked his tongue and turned around. As if all believe in something so silly. I'm not going to die as long as I don't kill the man I want to. So cool. Sakura exclaimed. Yeah, me too. Naruto shouted as he pretended to be cool like Sasuke while putting his hands in his pockets, even though he looked a little pale and was trembling. With the children of Team 7 moving ahead, Maruboshi looked at Kakashi before sending a secret signal his way, and when Kakashi nodded, Maruboshi used Shunshin to leave. As he left, Maruboshi told Tachibana, "Be well, I'll bring backup in case of danger." Under Kakashi's mentorship, Tachibana was now forced to walk ahead and leave the village, but no one saw Tazuna become a little sweaty after the divination. No one except Kakashi and Maruboshi. Tachibana followed the group silently, walking beside Tazuna as they escorted him to the land of waves. Tazuna-san, did you make a deal with the village to share the profits of your bridge in exchange for protection? Tachibana asked, since that was the only reason the village wouldn't just outright disband this mission given how risky Tachibana had predicted it would be. Tazuna looked at Tachibana with a little surprise before he nodded, yes. That's right. Although it is a C-rank mission since the Land of Waves couldn't afford the appropriate amount for a Jonin squad. We bargained a toll tax that Konoha would take for the usage of the bridge for the next 3 years in exchange. Tachibana nodded in understanding. He was currently following a routine. Tachibana activated his spirit vision to scout around for enemies every few minutes. The action had not gone unnoticed by Kakashi, but he just thought Tachibana was being wary. Team 7 was wary of any ambushes too, but they had gotten much more lax since they didn't deeply believe in Tachibana's divination abilities. Because of this, the two teams hadn't talked to each other much after their first introductions. I don't think a simple ambush from 2 Chunin Shinobi and from a missed Jonin and an elite Chunin would cause such a terrible divination result. In the anime, Kakashi was able to handle the attacks just fine with Naruto and Sasuke's help. There has to be something else. But what? I need an opportunity to pretend to be sleeping so that I can perform a dream divination before we reach the Land of Waves. The tension of the mission was getting on Tachibana's nerves, so he picked out a book from his bag and began reading it to calm himself. Kakashi noticed the book in Tachibana's hands and coughed lightly after reading its title. My neighbor's wife is prettier than my own. Tachibana didn't mind and carried on, his eyes remained alert for any ambushes. When did the two Chunin who attacked Kakashi arrive? Slowly the light of the day increased to a bright sunny afternoon, after which it dimmed until the evening when it finally miffed out into night. So it takes multiple days to travel to that place. Nice for me. Naruto and Sakura make camp. Sasuke guard Tazuna-san. Kakashi ordered. He then turned to Tachibana and said, "Why don't you gather firewood?" Tachibana nodded gladly. Having no idea how to set up a camp, he found himself exploring the woods to pick up dry sticks that could be used to make a fire. Once he felt like he had enough, Tachibana walked back to the camp only to find that there were now 6 tents propped up. He handed the sticks over to Naruto, who happily started the fire, on which Kakashi set up a pot of ramen for everyone to eat. Tazuna got drunk in spite of Kakashi's repeated warnings and collapsed into his tent, after which Kakashi ordered everyone's turn to keep watch. The first to stay awake were Tachibana and Kakashi. "Kakashi-san, I want to perform a divination. Is that all right with you?" Kakashi nodded. "You may perform them whenever you want." "Ah. I was being polite because I don't want to bring the mood down again." "Don't worry about it. Having information is better than not. I'd rather everyone be upset because you predicted their deaths than them dying without knowing what happened." Tachibana smiled at the confidence Kakashi's words gave him and performed the divination. "There will be an attack when we're asleep at the camp." Tachibana repeated the statement 7 times and opened his eyes. The pendulum was spinning clockwise, but only slowly. Tachibana opened his mouth but then closed it before pulling out a piece of paper and writing on it. Kakashi took the paper when Tachibana handed it to him and read what was on it, before folding it and tossing it into the fire to burn away. On it were the words, "We are likely being watched or going to be watched during the night." Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Naruto and Sasuke soon swapped with Tachibana while Kakashi remained awake. Before going to sleep, however, Tachibana performed a simple divination. "The danger that awaits us on our current mission." Tachibana muttered the statement 7 times before using cogitation to fall asleep and initiate a dream divination sequence. His vision abruptly shifted to an overview of a dense forest. It was night and Loki could see the campfire that was still burning with Naruto, Sasuke and Kakashi sitting around it. "Is this the forest we are currently in?" The view then slowly shifted to the trees where Tachibana spotted a shinobi team waiting and watching Kakashi and the entire team. They didn't have their weapons out and neither were they on guard. Tachibana could make out the designs on their headbands, but when he did he frowned. Shinobi from Kumo. Was there a plot like this in the original? I think not. Something's changed. But the vision didn't end there, it shifted, pushing through the trees until it broke through to show light. It swam over the mist-covered waters before reaching a bridge that was under construction. Except there were no workers on this eerie bridge. It was empty. And all of a sudden the bridge exploded, sending chunks of rock and cement attached to rebar flying through the air. The ground was dyed red and light footsteps were heard, before Tachibana saw Kakashi's head on the floor, his eyes open, gazing into the empty vastness of the sky. Maruboshi lying dead similarly with one of his legs lost and a blade sticking out of it. There were bodies of various other shinobis too, but he couldn't recognize any of them apart from Haku and Zabuza. The area was a bloodbath. Tachibana woke up with sweat covering all of his forehead. The back of his shirt had become wet and he felt like he couldn't go back to sleep. Should I tell Kakashi about it? No, even if he doesn't do anything to me for now, I don't know what'll happen to me once I go back. I'm sure Hiruzen will be happy enough to throw me to the root to dig out all my secrets. But what then? The host has come across a particularly grim vision. Generating mission. Closing square bracket. Mission has been generated. Closing square bracket. Mission. Prevent the worst from occurring. Closing square bracket. Reward. Access to a custom contract with a spirit world creature. Closing square bracket. Tachibana froze when he saw the mission that the system had assigned to him. Seriously? Getting involved in that? I don't even want to continue this mission any longer. What can I with half-assed clones and barely over a month of taijutsu training do against some of the top % of this world? If the host does not perform the mission, nothing will happen. There is no penalty. The host will only miss the reward. Closing square bracket. Seeing this made Tachibana sigh in relief. Alright then, I'll just divine the possibility of me surviving in the mission tomorrow, and then once they know that it'll be very risky to take me along, they'll allow me to leave. Tachibana was about to go to sleep, but he stopped and performed another divination instead. Why are the shinobi from Kumogakure interfering with this mission? Tachibana repeated the question 7 times before using cogitation once again. His vision shifted once again, and he was transported to a top view of the world. Tachibana's eyes caught sight of the entire sea surrounding the island nation of the Land of Waves. His vision shifted for Tachibana to end up with a document that was on the Hokage's table. A document that Hiruzen was reading. Strategic military camp sites for early detection of invasions. Tachibana understood what was going on. This deal was probably held by Hiruzen so that he could slowly set up a base camp for Konoha in the Land of Waves to spy on Kumogakure and Kurigakure. Is that why Kumogakure wants this deal to fall through? So that they don't have to have Big Brother Konoha breathing down their necks. I could hint at this tomorrow in our conversation. But I don't know what would Kakashi's response be if he learnt that I knew something like this. It's a military secret after all. One that's probably closely guarded. Though, it probably doesn't take a genius to figure out what Konoha wants from this deal. But I'm not this genius who can know about military tactics just after a month of being in the village. Even if it's possible, it'll only make them suspicious of what more I can learn that they don't want me to know about. And who let this secret slip out of the village anyway? Danzo. But why? To have an excuse to start a war or something. No, Hiruzen doesn't want another war with how he gave away Hazashi to Kumogakure after Hinata was kidnapped. So he'd only compromise again. So why would Danzo leak these plans when he knows Hiruzen lacks a spine? It's more likely that some Kumo spy in the village learnt about this. And then there's also Sasuke. For his Sharingan, Tachibana performed a few simple pendulum divinations and found himself confirming the guess he had made. They do want to destroy the possibility of Konoha forming an outpost in the Land of Waves. And as an added bonus, they're also after Sasuke's Sharingan. Nothing to do with me. I'll be gone tomorrow. The faster I leave, the safer I am. Tachibana fell asleep soon after, trusting his life in the hands of Team 7 who stood guard all night in rotations. Tachibana woke up the next morning with a smile, until it vanished as he saw Maruboshi arrive outside his tent. Not happy that I'm here? Maruboshi asked with a smile. He thought he was being clever about it but didn't realize that it was exactly what Tachibana was thinking. I thought I'd just have to convince Kakashi to leave, not him. This would have been so much easier if it was just Kakashi. No, I performed another divination. Tachibana lied without a pause, as easily as breathing. And, Maruboshi asked, leaning in with curiosity. The trip will be the death of me. Literally. Tachibana explained in a grave tone. I won't go back alive as long as I take part in this trip. Maruboshi frowned at the information and was about to say something when a different voice interrupted. Nothing will happen to you. I will protect you. Tachibana almost cursed out loud. His hand reflexively moved to toss a few shurikens into the mouth that was surrendering him to a gruesome scenario. The shout revealed Naruto and the rest of Team 7 were just behind the tent listening to their conversation. Kakashi caught Naruto, slinging him over his shoulder before walking away along with Sasuke and Sakura as Naruto shouted to be let down. Maruboshi had a smile on his face as he looked at the leaving Team 7 before looking at Tachibana. He put his hand on Tachibana's shoulder and explained, Tachibana-kun, don't you like to enjoy in peace? Like those kids we saved, the kids you enjoyed playing with in that village. Yes, I love peace. Shamelessly. Tachibana nodded with determined eyes, ready to do anything for it. Then you should do well to remember this. Peace doesn't exist only because it is something that everyone enjoys. It exists because people are fighting day and night somewhere out of your sight for you to enjoy it. Tachibana's eyes dilated as his mouth hung a little loose. He knows. He knows that I'm lying. Maruboshi patted Tachibana's shoulder a few more times before walking away while saying, "You can decide what you want to do, Tachibana-kun, I won't stop you. We all have our fears, but it takes a real man to face them. I don't want to be a real man. Is it so hard to understand that people don't want to go on suicide missions?" For the first time after coming to this world, Tachibana's eyes dilated like he'd heard something that had touched him to the core, not in a good way. How easy it is for them to demand my life while they treated me like an outsider when they learned I could use divination to learn hidden things. Tachibana's expression was odd and felt a little scary, like he was hesitant to allow someone from a world he wanted to run away from to influence him so deeply. His eyes lay on Maruboshi's figure as he walked away, thinking about what he should do. Before he let out a deep sigh and walked back into the tent. Got to get my stuff so that I can at least put up a little resistance before I eventually die. With impeccable control over his expressions, Tachibana maintained a soft smile throughout his journey. "I'll protect you well, Tachibana-kun. So don't be afraid," Naruto declared while walking by his side. Tachibana smiled and nodded. He was afraid that if he opened his mouth he'd end up spouting his true thoughts. Team 7's eavesdropping on his conversation with Maruboshi had brought them a little closer and had reopened avenues for conversation. But Tachibana felt suffocated. "I don't want to be here." Tachibana glanced at Maruboshi and then thought about what he'd said. "Peace, huh? I don't mind fighting for it. But die for it. I don't mind even this as long as I was doing it to protect someone close to me. But for the peace people like Hiruzen and Danzo protect? I think not. As for changing the fate of all those who are about to die, I haven't forgotten the first rule of a seer: be respectful to fate. I'm not going to try and change something I can't bear myself. Who knows what price it'll try to extract from me? What if I end up dying instead of them? The worst part is, I can't even leave the team without becoming a traitor. If they wouldn't die, I'm half sure Maruboshi would accept me back into the team and train me well so that this doesn't happen the next time. But the problem is they'll die. And if they do, I'm not sure what Hiruzen'll do with me. The best outcome would be that I'm left alone. The worst would be joining Root or being forced to kill myself like Kumo. Tachibana-kun, what's your favorite taijutsu stance?" Naruto asked randomly with a smile. "Mine's the fox stance. It resonates with me. Mine's the cat stance. I like it because it allows me to react the fastest." Tachibana kept his impeccable smile outwardly as he conversed with Naruto while inside his mind he continued to plan his eventual escape from imminent demise. "If I want to leave from here on good terms, I need to make Kakashi or Maruboshi send me back to the village on a mission before they're killed." Tachibana continued to activate his spirit vision to look for any enemies following or surrounding them but didn't find any. What did Maruboshi do in the village? Did he not bring back any shinobi to help with the added difficulty of the mission? The shinobi from Kumogakure are no longer around us. But that could also be because they've already learned all that they wanted to learn about us. But how am I going to get them to send me away? Be annoying on purpose? No, if they aren't sending Naruto away, they probably wouldn't send me away. If I direct them to a point where they're caught in a trap and only I'm safe enough to return to the village. Suddenly Naruto spoke. "Tachibana-kun, can you divine something for me?" "Oh, what do you want me to divine for you?" "That, will, PSPSPSPPSPS. Huh, what?" Naruto leaned closer before whispering in Tachibana's ear while making sure no one else was hearing him. "Can you divine how many kids me and Sakura will have?" Kakashi and Maruboshi stumbled but regained their balance soon after. Tachibana was a little dumbfounded, but he spoke quickly. "Are you sure you want to know about that, Naruto? Shouldn't you ask Haruno-san about it first?" "Yes, I want to know. Besides, I can't divine about anything that I don't have a concrete trail about." Tachibana explained. I could divine if Haruno-san likes you, but you can see how she's even disgusted by the thought. Naruto looked at Sakura, who was looking back at him in disgust before she moved closer to Sasuke, who gave her a short glance before ignoring her. Tachibana just shook his head and continued to walk behind Tazuna along with a depressed Naruto. As they walked, Tachibana almost suddenly froze in his spot when he activated Spirit Vision. Two teams of shinobi are rushing this way. And they're quite fast. Body Flicker Jutsu. Tachibana casually put his hand on Naruto's shoulder before ignoring his blaring instinct and cheering him up. Naruto-kun, why don't you think of this? Instead of Haruno-san who doesn't like you, if you marry someone who truly loves you, you'll be happier, right? But as Naruto spoke, his eyes suddenly narrowed and he pulled out a kunai that he tossed into the trees. Clink. All the genin heard the sound of the deflected kunai and turned around to pay attention to the trees while Kakashi spoke softly, triangle formation. Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke jumped into action by standing around Tazuna, who looked worried. Not even seconds later, from both sides of the pathway appeared shinobi wearing Kumogakure's forehead protector as they peered down from the branches they were standing on. The shinobi had a dark skin color, characteristic of the people from the Land of Lightning. They were well built and all had a tanto attached to their waist. Tachibana, left alone, pulled out two kunai and held the cat stance. Kakashi and Maruboshi though were completely relaxed, as if they didn't even view the Kumo shinobi as a threat. Give us Tazuna and there will be no trouble. One of the team leaders said calmly with his hands folded. Oh, seriously? I'm scared, Kakashi calmly stated while looking at the team leader. He then explained, I'm sure you recognize me, don't you? The team leader frowned but said, yes, you're Kakashi the copy ninja. But don't think just your name's going to make us fear you. We were arranged specifically to take you out. Oh, I'm really scared now. A nameless shinobi was prepared to take me out, Kakashi said sarcastically with a happy smile, causing the shinobi to frown. Fine then, have it your way. The two team leaders looked at each other before they flickered away from their places. Tachibana's eyes widened slightly because the next thing he saw was three kunai blaring towards his head and piercing it like a fruit. Fuck. The vision shattered and Tachibana ducked before he heard a loud clang from both Kakashi and Maruboshi, who had pulled out their kunai and clashed with the team leaders. Tachibana's eyes momentarily glanced at the branches where the team members were standing, but he didn't find anyone there. Instead, the 6 team members had encircled him and Team 7 along with Tazuna. Almost immediately Kakashi taunted the team leaders further, I thought you were here to take me out. Where are we going for the date? Your home. Or my home. Oh, we'll go alright. But you'll be in a body bag. Clang asterisk clang asterisk clang asterisk clang asterisk clang asterisk clang. All the Konoha genin were forced to focus on their own enemies as the 3 shinobi from Kumo took on each team. Hold on Tachibana-kun. I'll save you, Naruto shouted, seeing Tachibana surrounded by 3 genin, but Tachibana responded back casually. Don't worry, I don't need your help to fight 3 cowards who want to team tag a single freshly graduated genin. The 3 Kumo genin instantly frowned, but they did their best not to let Tachibana's taunts get to them. The 3 Kumo genin communicated with signs before they flickered from their positions to Tachibana. One stabbed directly at his heart, another at his head, and the last one at his guts. Surprising all of them, Tachibana used the body flicker jutsu himself to put some distance between them, but not before he kicked dust into their eyes. Got you. Once the kunai missed his vitals, Tachibana leaned forward and shot towards the genin blinded by the dust he'd kicked up. Tisk. Those 2 recovered already. Avoiding his plan to kill the genin directly by stabbing the kunai in his eyes, Tachibana ducked low and used his momentum to slither around the genin before taking him hostage because the 2 other genins had recovered in time to intercept him. Why don't you just stab your own teammate? I mean, when you're cowardly enough to gang up on me 3-on-1, why not? Am I right or am I right? Tachibana asked kindly while placing the kunai on their teammate's carotid artery in the neck, drawing blood. Don't worry about me. Just kill him. The genin shouted but his teammates remained reluctant. Meanwhile, their team leader was stuck fighting Kakashi, who gave him a polite smile as he spoke softly, "Why don't we leave the kids to the kids? Aren't they growing up well?" Tachibana noticed the unwilling expression of his two enemies and smiled, "As long as you don't harm me, I won't harm your teammate, isn't that fa?" But before he could finish his sentence, the genin he had held hostage pulled out a kunai and attempted to stab Tachibana's thigh. Except Tachibana was infinitely faster and slashed his neck before he could do anything. The feeling of intentionally slicing flesh felt new to Tachibana. Although he'd already stabbed his kunai into Naginaga's stomach earlier, he'd done it fast enough for him to feel nothing. It was reflexive. Right now he wanted to hurl out the shinobi ration bar that he'd eaten in place of a proper breakfast in the morning, but he managed to stay focused on the two other genin. With his leverage over the other two gone and the genin enraged, Tachibana did his best to dodge their attacks. Except one of them was smart enough to throw a kunai with an explosive tag is attached to it. Tachibana's eyes narrowed, as he grabbed the lit explosive seal and stuck it to the back of the boy whose neck he'd just slashed. He then pushed the boy back at his teammate, who with wide eyes reflexively caught him. A dust cloud rose in the air, mixed with flesh and blood. The other genin instantly shouted at the loss of not one but two of her teammates, Kenji, Daichi. Except all of a sudden, she felt her body go weak, slowly becoming numb as a sharp pain shot throughout her chest. She looked below and found a kunai piercing through the back of her body and into her heart as it exited out the front. She tried to look back at her enemy, but the pain in her chest stopped her. Her eyes gained an unwilling look and carried immense hatred against her killer, but she couldn't do anything except fall limp as her blood drained away and she died. Tachibana pulled out the kunai and flicked it clean with a sense of disgust before looking at Team 7 fighting the genin they were against. Okay. They don't need help. Sasuke was handling two enemies while Naruto fought one of them, yet neither chose to violently harm their enemies, they only made sure they wouldn't wake up for a while. Tachibana's eyes then went to Kakashi and Maruboshi. Maruboshi's enemy was on the ground, lying in a pool of blood, while Kakashi's enemy was dead. So one for extracting information, Tachibana guessed. Maruboshi looked over at Tachibana and nodded after he saw the carnage he'd caused before giving him a smile. At least don't smile when there's blood on your face. You look like a psychopath. Tachibana complained with his eyes, and it seemed like Maruboshi understood what he'd meant, since he laughed slightly before turning back to his enemy bleeding out on the ground. Tachibana-kun, I'm here to save you. Naruto shouted as he ran through the cloud of dust the explosive tag had kicked up and was slowly dissipating. But as soon as he saw the carnage that Tachibana had caused, he fell to his knees and vomited. Ah, he hasn't killed anyone yet, I guess. Not like I can stomach this either way, Tachibana complained as he looked at the half-blown-up bodies of the two genin and the body of the girl he'd stabbed through her heart. Sakura similarly vomited when she looked at the carnage, but Sasuke managed to hold it in. But a glimmer of hate shone through his eyes as he looked at the bloody scene. Not knowing what to do next, Tachibana weakly defended himself, I'm not as strong as you are. I can't stop them unless I kill them first. Naruto looked at Tachibana and began to ponder on his words, so Tachibana left Team 7 alone to defend Tazuna as he made his way towards the forest where Maruboshi and Kakashi had taken their golden goose. Except as Tachibana arrived near their questioning spot, he couldn't hear any part of their conversation. A barrier, Tachibana guessed as he looked at the man under whose nails Kakashi pierced Sanban's. Regardless, Tachibana tried guessing what they were talking about by lip reading, but he wasn't very successful. With nothing else to do, Tachibana's mind wandered. What if I tell them I can summon the spirit of the dead through a ritual to ask it questions and gain perfect answers? I'd probably get killed or tortured and interrogated by the village. I can't use this incident to return since it wasn't challenging enough for Kakashi and Maruboshi to request backup. I'll have to look for something else. That was when Kakashi and Maruboshi noticed Tachibana spying on them, so they ended their interrogation and after storing away the body in a storage seal they dispelled the barrier. What did he say? Tachibana asked since neither Maruboshi nor Kakashi had a good expression on their faces. Tachibana thought for a bit before asking, have they taken the people of Land of Waves hostage? Or perhaps someone who doesn't like Tazuna has sold out the village to Kumo in exchange for benefits like becoming the daimyo or something. Kakashi's eyes widened at Tachibana's insight but Maruboshi simply nodded, yes. To our misfortune, both have happened. Tachibana frowned for a second before smiling broadly, so we can return to the village right. I mean clearly, this is a situation beyond our capabilities. Are you serious? Tazuna asked suddenly as he appeared out of a bush while looking at Maruboshi and Kakashi. Tisk. Tachibana clicked his tongue mentally since he realized exactly what was about to happen. We need to get there faster then. My daughter-in-law and my grandchild are probably being held hostage in the village. We need to save them. Please. I will give you whatever you want. Kakashi looked at Maruboshi for a second before looking at Tazuna with a sigh as he walked ahead with him. Tachibana left alone with Maruboshi looked at him with a little hate. So we're going to stick our noses into what could very well devolve into a fight between two of the 5 great shinobi nations. Maruboshi sighed as he tried to explain, backup will arrive soon. Tachibana frowned and explained, why are you people hell-bent on proving my divinations wrong? Why can't you just accept the fact that going to the Land of Waves will end your lives and leave it at that? Why do you want to challenge fate? Maruboshi looked directly into Tachibana's eyes as he spoke softly, you shouldn't be so pessimistic Tachibana-kun. No matter what fate has in store for you, as long as you fight to change it, I believe you can bend it to your will. Tachibana's face grew darker as a soft breeze bent trees to create a shadow on his face. Maruboshi looked at Tachibana for a little longer before he sighed and walked away. But Tachibana stopped him with one sentence, one often meets destiny on the road they take to avoid it. I truly hope you don't die, but I don't have a cure for stupidity. Tachibana then walked away from the forest and Maruboshi, returning to meet Team 7 and help them escort Tazuna. And when he arrived at the team's side, Naruto was the first to speak with him, Tachibana-kun. I will become strong enough that you don't have to kill your enemies. Why am I surrounded by idiots? Tachibana cried in his mind while putting a smile on his face, I'm sure you will Naruto-kun. I hope to see such a perfect day in the future. I believe in you. Kakashi made a deadpan expression, along with Sakura and Sasuke who heard the sarcasm in Tachibana's words while Naruto shouted innocently, yes. Kakashi paused. Observing Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura all pull out their kunai and guard Tazuna gave me a little relief since it appeared that they did remember that it was their mission to protect him. I was a little worried about Tachibana-kun facing 3 genin at once but seeing how Maruboshi-san was calm about it, I didn't step in to help him. My eyes drifted to the person who clashed with Maruboshi-san and relaxed. It seems the 2 team leaders are only chunin, while the team members are just genin. Were these the people that were watching us last night? Or are they the team sent after gathering information about our group? Then looking at the team leader who was in a clash with me, I thought about what he'd said earlier. If he's here to take me out, he's probably a master of the wind element which counters my best, the lightning element. But isn't he too weak? I don't even need to use the Sharingan for this. Did they really think I'll die to a chunin? Or did they want to use this incident to raise a fuss and ask for compensation once again from Hokage-sama? It's better we don't kill them. But they're Kumo shinobi, they'll either kill themselves or die trying if they're captured. Before I could think any further, my enemy took a quick step to close the distance between us as he used one of his hands to weave a seal. Wind release, vacuum blade. Damn, can't let them see I can use elemental jutsu for now, or they'll be on my heels begging me to teach them something cool. I spat out the 3 senbon hidden within my mouth and blinded the guy. The pain made him lose focus on making his seals but before he could scream, I sliced his head. Looking back at Maruboshi, I found his enemy was down for the count too. Surprisingly, Tachibana had defeated his 3 enemies quicker than my team. Ah, the scene's quite gory. Well, at least those on my team will grow from seeing it. Hopefully, Sasuke takes this into improve, and isn't held back by his memories of the Uchiha massacre. And Sakura, well, whatever. Turning to Maruboshi-san, I nodded to him indicating that we could interrogate the person he'd captured since I could tell there weren't any more enemies around the area. So we moved deeper into the forest where I set a simple barrier to stop any sounds from leaking out. Why do you want Tazuna? Maruboshi-san asked calmly, but despite the pain that he was feeling from Maruboshi-san pressing down on his wound, the man refused to speak. At least, until I started to pierce Senbon's under his nail. Tell me and we can end this. Maruboshi-san calmly asked again. The Kumo shinobi looked at us with hatred in his eyes and finally spat out a few words. He has a bounty on his head. It doesn't matter what you do for him. We've already taken his family hostage. He'll walk over to us himself once he realizes you aren't interested in saving his family. Oh, I was surprised. Internal conflict in the land of waves. Maruboshi-san figured out seemingly the same thing, so he asked another question. Or any other shinobi villages involved in this? Like Kurigakure. Hehe, scared aren't you? Afraid that it'll turn into another war you can't afford. All you cowards can do is kill off our teams one by framing other villages. Can't fight us face to face because that's what you are. Cowards. Maruboshi-san stabbed a kunai into the Chunin's head, killing him, and that was when I noticed Tachibana-kun standing outside the barrier lost in his own world. I took down the barrier and Tachibana asked us a question: have they taken the people of Land of Waves hostage? Or perhaps someone who doesn't like Tazuna has sold out the village to Kumo in exchange for benefits like becoming the daimyo or something. Color me surprised, but I hadn't realized Tachibana-kun was this smart. Is his divination also something he uses to cover up the fact that he has a great head? Maruboshi-san confirmed Tachibana's question and he immediately took advantage of the situation to stop the mission. Unfortunately, we can't leave so easily. The Hokage explicitly ordered us to see that this mission was completed to the end. It shouldn't have been so complicated, but given that the Anbu will arrive to help us later, it should be easy to complete. Tachibana-kun is quite selfish though. Not someone I'd leave my back to. But I doubt anyone who's not a genius would be able to survive without being at least a little selfish. I should pay more attention to his warnings next time. Tazuna appeared at the same time and interfered with Tachibana's plan, so I took him away. Maruboshi-san would likely want to speak to him alone. Soon the team was together once again and we were on our way to the Land of Waves. Faster than before since Tazuna was in a hurry, but not by much since he couldn't run like us. We should be able to get on the boat prepared for us at the border by the end of the day today, and we'll be in the Land of Waves by tomorrow morning. But if shinobis from Kumogakure have taken over the Land of Waves, it'll be a bit difficult. Especially with Naruto. What should I send Naruto to do while I infiltrate the ranks of Kumo shinobi to gather more information about their purpose? Guarding Tazuna would be a nice mission to give him. If I'm quick enough I can return in time before he starts to get bored. I can even ask Maruboshi-san to help train Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura in chakra control. Or I could simply get them to do reconnaissance to gather information about where Tazuna's family is captured and free them. They'll probably create a ruckus in the process, but I'm sure Tachibana-kun will be able to take care of it and keep them safe. He seems reasonable. Suddenly I felt someone gaze at me as if they were trying to bore a hole through my back. I followed the gaze and found Tachibana frowning as he was looking at me. Did he guess I was going to stick him with the job of guarding Team 7? How sharp. I turned around and continued walking anyway, not like he can refuse. Tazuna remained silent on the rest of our journey, even when Naruto did silly things to take his mind off of what I'd made him and his teammates do, but my attention was usually on Tachibana-kun. As we moved closer and closer to the Land of Waves, I found him cracking odd jokes with Naruto. As if he was trying to avoid thinking about something tragic that would happen soon. I would catch him occasionally glancing at Maruboshi-san and me with pity before he'd switch it up with a bright smile as he continued talking with Naruto. Initially, I thought he was another broody Sasuke, but he's probably a realist. He knows something we don't. Another divination. Well, even if I'm going to die, I'll finally be with Obito and Rin. I just have to make sure Naruto and Sasuke are fine before I do so, maybe even Sakura, so that fire burns on or whatever. It would probably start another war if the Jinchuriki died on a mission. Hokage-sama would probably reanimate my corpse only to kill me again. Single quote. Would Dad meet me in Pure Land too? I wonder if he'd be proud of all that I've achieved. Or disappointed that I came back to meet him so soon. He'd probably be disappointed that I didn't spend enough time with his Kenjutsu style. Whatever. Being the last one to slip into the boat, Tachibana fished off the rope that was anchoring the boat to the dock before they vanished into the mist. Can't believe Kakashi made Naruto and the others kill the genin they faced. He even spared one for Sakura. Tachibana looked at Sakura, who was looking at her hands as if they were still stained with blood. Tazuna nearby was muttering random things after he'd learnt that his family was taken hostage. After a while of them being in the sea as Maruboshi rowed the boat closer and closer to the land of waves, Tachibana had fully relaxed. Finally, I don't have to use spirit vision again and again. My glabella felt like it was going to explode. Mid-thought, Tachibana's closed eyes shot open and he forced his body to roll off the boat and fall into the water. Thud! A stream of Senbon pierced into the boat right where he was sitting. Kakashi pulled open his Sharingan, while Maruboshi unsheathed his Tanto. Only when nothing happened for the next few minutes, did Tachibana peer out from under the water. Haku and Zabuza. They're attacking while we're in the sea. Why does this suddenly make much more sense? Sasuke and Naruto grabbed a kunai each and looked around warily while Sakura trembled like a newborn foal. Tazuna was startled, but he stayed in the encirclement that Team 7 created and waited to be saved. Tachibana had already activated his spirit vision, and since the fog couldn't stop him from seeing through, he started to search for Zabuza and Haku. Haku's to our east. But Zabuza, where's he? Tachibana frowned, but then Kakashi shouted, "Watch out." Tachibana's eyes widened as he looked underneath. No way. He's underneath. Tachibana pushed a ridiculous amount of chakra into his feet to kick up from the water and land back in the boat. Simultaneously, a stream of water shot out at jet speed, piercing right through where his body had been a second earlier. Pulling out kunai, Tachibana instantly became alert as he adopted the cat stance and waited for Zabuza to come out or for the Jonins to act. Standing in silence for what felt like minutes, Tachibana finally noticed a difference. The mist around them had started to thicken. Kakashi's Sharingan glowed like a demonic eye through the mist, but nothing else was visible. The sounds of the boat surfing the waves became muffled as if the mist wouldn't allow them to spread, while the waves crashing against each other became mute as if they never existed. That was when everyone on the boat heard the sound of water rushing, rumbling as it moved closer and closer towards them. Maruboshi quickly formed hand seals before using his chakra to create water release, water formation wall. The water around the boat rose as one giant mass to form a towering well. The height given the tapering diameter of the water tower protecting them made Tachibana feel they'd drown them if Maruboshi made even a single mistake. Team 7 sent a shocked gaze Maruboshi's way while looking at Kakashi with a little disappointment, but the two of them were busy tracking down exactly where the jutsu was coming from and where their opponents were. Within moments of Maruboshi creating the water wall all around them, a thundering crash resounded as everyone inside the water well spotted a wall of water crashing into the walls of the well. The genin all feared for their lives but remained steady. Having taken a life had shown them just how fragile they were, and right now they wanted to prevent their fragile lives from vanishing. Tachibana bit his lips to distract himself from the pain as he cracked a joke to ease his own nerves. "I just thought of a joke." When everyone's attention was on him, he spoke. What did one wave say to the other one? Naruto was confused while Sasuke and Sakura paid attention. Nothing, they just waved at each other and left. Sasuke snorted. Sakura's lips twitched. Even Kakashi sent a glance Tachibana's way with a slightly happy look. Naruto remained confused, but there wasn't any time left for that since the water wall that Maruboshi had created fell back into the sea around them when the wall of water crashing into it stopped. Maruboshi immediately took over the west while Kakashi the east. There was a sudden swish as Tachibana spotted Zabuza throwing something using spirit vision. Sword. Duck. Kakashi shouted, causing everyone along with Tazuna to duck to avoid being swiped off the boat by the sword. And except Tachibana, everyone ducked. But that was when Tachibana shouted, "No! They're trying to split us." But it was too late. As soon as the sword arrived right in front of the boat, an ice blade shot out from underneath the boat and split it right through the center. Instantly Maruboshi and Kakashi were divided into one side while the genin along with Tazuna to another. But before people from either side could help each other, two people shot out from the split. Zabuza swam out like a dolphin and grabbed his blade in the air, spinning into an attack that took all of Kakashi's effort to block. While Haku generated an ice dome that enclosed the genin. The two of them landed on the surface of the water, but just as Maruboshi tried to form hand seals to attack them, another Zabuza showed up behind him and attacked him with a copy of his blade, Kubikiribocho. With Zabuza holding back both the teachers, he spoke in a sly tone. "Give up. Just let me take that old man and everyone else will be spared." "Is that so?" Kakashi asked calmly. Finally back to working under Kurigakure. Demon of the Hidden Mist. Zabuza Momochi. "Oh, you know me. That's better for me then, copy Ninja Kakashi." Zabuza said with a smile that revealed his jagged shark-like teeth. "Since my reputation precedes me, I'm going to give you exactly one chance to ask your teammate to pull off from the other side." Kakashi threatened. "Oh, and what will you do if I don't?" Zabuza asked, putting more pressure on Kakashi's kunai using his blade. Kakashi only smiled before the area shattered to reveal Zabuza was attacking the air and Kakashi's kunai was approaching his neck to behead him and stab it. "What a fool." Zabuza laughed before the Zabuza in front of Kakashi exploded into a burst of sharp water needles. Kakashi shielded himself from it by performing a quick seal to use the jutsu, Wind Release, Gale Palm. But during this time, Kakashi felt another blade landing on his neck, except he reacted almost instinctively to block the blade. Sparks shot through the air as Kakashi and Zabuza clashed once again. But to protect himself, Zabuza thickened the fog and retreated into its depths. "I still have those kids with me, Kakashi. Are you ready to bet their lives just to kill me?" A minute earlier. Surrounded by ice mirrors, Tachibana, Team 7 and Tazuna all huddled closer as they faced a mysterious masked opponent reflected in all the mirrors. Sasuke pulled out a kunai and became tense, while Naruto tensed his fists to punch anything coming towards them. Sakura protectively stood by Tazuna's side as Tachibana analyzed the ice dome using spirit vision. "So I can see his real location using spirit vision. How do I get him if he's so fast in moving around? Aoi attacks. But I have no jutsu. Oh, I could do that." Tachibana's hand went to his ninja pouch as he felt around for a particular item he'd looted from the corpse of the genin who'd attacked him. "But I have to be quick. How do I distract him though?" "Give up the man you're protecting and I'll leave you alive," Haku proclaimed calmly as he pulled thin ice needles into both hands, showing everyone he meant business. "As if we'll give him to you. We promised to protect the old man and we'll do it," Naruto shouted, and Tachibana crafted a quick plan. "Aren't you ashamed of serving the village that killed everyone from your clan?" Tachibana shouted from behind, dragging all attention to him. With everyone looking at him with confusion, Tachibana continued, "I heard that the Mizukage had turned the once prosperous Kurigakure, which was dependent on several clans like the Kagaya and Yuki, into the bloody village. They slaughtered all the clans." Sasuke's eyes widened as he looked at Haku, his eyes turned a little moist but he held back his nightmares well. Naruto was a little confused, but when he heard about Haku's tragic past he became solemn too. "Kurigakure has changed," Haku proclaimed confidently, but Tachibana used spirit vision to see how unbalanced Haku's emotions were. His aura was a mixture of various colors. There was a deep violet that indicated the feeling of estrangement, blue for thought, and a depressing gray for sadness. So Tachibana struck when the iron was hot. But your partner says otherwise. The demon of the hidden mist. Zabuza. Are you sure you trust him? Tell me, doesn't he treat you like a tool? The bingo book tells several tales of how Zabuza graduated to become a genin by killing all the other students in his class. Isn't he exactly like Kurigakure is? If they've accepted a shinobi like him, what's to say that they've changed? You must evaluate people based on their actions, not their words. As much as he'd like to, Tachibana's aim wasn't to win over Haku or convert him to become a believer of the will of fire that consumed talents to sustain itself. Tachibana only wanted a moment of distraction. And the momentary distraction he got. As soon as Tachibana saw Haku's eyes close from the sudden babble of words he'd poured into the conversation, Tachibana tossed the explosive kunai he'd stolen from the corpse of the genin who tried to blast him to the top of the ice dome, where the real Haku was. The explosion shattered most of the ice mirrors, but Tachibana wasn't done. Before anyone could react to the first deafening explosion, as soon as Tachibana saw Haku escaping from the ice dome to protect himself, Tachibana tossed 2 more explosive kunai towards him. 2 more explosions lit up the dome simultaneously as the pressure waves pushed the split boat towards Kakashi and Maruboshi. Maruboshi-sensei. Kakashi-sensei. We're all right. For now. Tachibana shouted as soon as he got the chance, since the thick mist didn't allow them to see much. Tachibana constantly scanned the sea for any signs of Haku and found him recuperating a little distance away. It should take him at least a minute to recover fully. Whoever has the most chakra out of all of you, use the clone and transformation jutsu to fake several teams with Tazuna in them and scatter them around the sea. I have the mo. Naruto shouted, but Sakura managed to shut Naruto's mouth before he could speak more by thrusting her fist into his mouth. Keep your voice low, we don't want them to catch on to our plan. Tachibana explained, and Naruto quickly nodded before forming a seal and creating several clones. Except to Tachibana's luck, Naruto used the multi-shadow clone jutsu to create the fake teams, which made them real enough to interact with the water in the sea, making all the fakes seem real. Tachibana and the rest quickly jumped out of the boat and merged with the surrounding teams with Tazuna. On the other side, Kakashi used his Sharingan to scan through the chakra mist surrounding everyone to see if he could find Zabuza. But once he understood that this was pointless, his fingers blurred at high speeds with hand signs. Wind release. Great breakthrough jutsu. A torrent of air rushed out of Kakashi as he guided it everywhere around them to scatter the mist and reveal the several fakes floating in the sea. Whether it be Kakashi, Maruboshi, Zabuza, or Haku, everyone became stupefied by the amount of clones in the water surrounding them. Maruboshi smiled a little before complimenting Tachibana, "Good job, you brat. At least I haven't taught a fool. But I am the fool." Tachibana shouted in his mind but remained silent in reality as he copied the smile that all the other clones Naruto had transformed into him had. Maruboshi instantly used the clear view of his enemies as an advantage and rushed at them, running on water, while weaving hand seals. Water release. Great dragon bullet. Instead of 1, 3 dragons spiraled up from the sea under Maruboshi's legs as they all aimed at Zabuza and Haku before launching a series of water bullets. Zabuza sliced through the few bullets that came at him, while Haku quickly made a mirror to hide in and teleport to Zabuza's side. As the water dragons stopped their bullet spam and slithered to cover the entire area where the clones were, Maruboshi launched a spinning kick at Zabuza. Zabuza was forced to fend it off with his blade, but before he could react, Kakashi emerged from behind him weaving hand seals so fast his hands became a blur. Water release. Water prison. A sphere of water rose from the sea to capture Zabuza, who was locked in a fight with Maruboshi, but before the water could form completely, Kakashi was forced to retreat as he found hundreds of ice needles firing his way. Kakashi dodged the needles and with a single hand formed a seal that spawned a shadow clone which rushed to keep Haku busy. Focusing back on Zabuza, Kakashi and Maruboshi mounted a pincer attack. But Zabuza, being not one to be left behind, instantly formed a water clone to tackle the two enemies and reduce his strain. "Who are you, old man? Never heard about you," Zabuza asked with a smile as his blade sliced through the kunai Maruboshi put up to block his blade. "The famous demon of the hidden mist wants to know my name. I'm honored. You can call me Death because I will be the death of you." All of a sudden the kunai that Zabuza had sliced into two vanished alongside Maruboshi, who was now rolling in the air as his prosthetic leg slipped off to reveal a thin but extremely sharp blade. Zabuza flipped around with his clone's help as he narrowly avoided the blade to his neck, only to come face to face with Kakashi once again. Kakashi wasted no time getting his 3-tomo Sharingan to spin, using genjutsu to confuse Zabuza. Zabuza instantly broke out of the genjutsu, but the fraction of a second he spent trapped in it allowed Maruboshi to bring down the blade in his leg towards him. But just as the blade reached Zabuza, an ice mirror opened up to allow a hand to pull him away from harm. Maruboshi immediately redirected his attack and sliced away the hand, but the damage was done. Zabuza was saved. Kakashi and Maruboshi both looked at Haku, who was standing a little far away with Kakashi's clone. He'd lost a hand and was bleeding profusely, but with a soft touch, his shoulder froze to stop the blood loss. "Zabuza-sama, are you alright?" Haku shouted. Zabuza looked at him and then back at Kakashi and Maruboshi before clicking his tongue. "Tisk, I didn't think this old man would be so strong. Who's he?" Tachibana looked at the situation from afar and pondered the question Sakura asked. Can't Kakashi and Maruboshi beat them now that one of them has lost an arm? Naruto was the first to speak out on this matter. He made sure to keep his voice a whisper when Sakura glared at him. "I'm sure Kakashi-sensei will get them. Didn't you see how easily he beat Sasuke during the bell test?" Sasuke frowned but said nothing else. It was when Tachibana spoke that they all felt a little amazed. "No. Zabuza will most likely retreat with Haku's arm. He didn't know about Maruboshi-sensei because we killed all the genin and chunin from Kumogakur earlier. He'll most likely take this information back to the Land of Waves to prepare the team waiting for us. But Kakashi-sensei is strong. Why can't he defeat him?" Naruto asked with a confused look. "Yes. Wouldn't they be really motivated to kill him to avoid the enemy learning about Maruboshi-sensei's abilities?" Sakura added. Tachibana looked at everyone and observed their curious expressions, so he shook his head a little and explained, "Under normal circumstances, Kakashi-sensei and Maruboshi-sensei would have done that. But right now the two of them have to leave with us immediately." "Huh? Why?" Naruto asked. "Because we don't know if Zabuza has reinforcements arriving." The statement caused everyone's eyes to widen, giving them a new perspective of the situation. "We need to escape from here quick." Almost impressively at the same time, everyone saw Zabuza weave a series of hand seals to spew out a thick mist that blinded everyone again. Tachibana heard a flurry of splashes and clangs before he heard Maruboshi shout, "Tachibana, take one of them and run." Without asking her permission, Tachibana picked up Naruto and rushed in the direction they'd come from. "Why are you carrying me?" Naruto shouted, attracting a series of splashes towards Tachibana and himself. Tachibana looked back, but once he saw the fog rolling in closer and closer, he put all his effort into controlling the chakra on his feet to rush away from it using a partial body flicker jutsu. "Naruto-kun, please stay quiet. We don't want to die, do we?" But Sasuke and Sakura, "Don't worry, Maruboshi-sensei and Kakashi-sensei will bring them along with Tazuna." Tachibana ran with all his speed for a minute when soon he heard the splashes that were following him speed up as if they were flying towards him. "Naruto-kun, could you look back and tell me who's coming?" Naruto looked back awkwardly, but Tachibana's balance as a clown helped him keep running at his top speed. Finally, when Naruto spoke, "It's Kakashi-sensei and Maruboshi-sensei, they have a clone carrying Tazuna." Tachibana relaxed, coming to a slow stop. But just as he did slow down, he heard Maruboshi shout from behind them, "Keep running." "Huh? Why?" Naruto asked with confusion. But as soon as the mist behind Kakashi and Maruboshi started to dissipate, his mouth fell. Naruto's grip on Tachibana's shoulder tightened as he shouted in his ears, "Tachibana-kun. Run! There's a gigantic wave following us. Hash!" In it, cursing under his breath, Tachibana began rushing once again. Kakashi and Maruboshi eventually caught up to him, when Maruboshi made a clone and picked up Naruto off Tachibana's back before looking at him and smiling. "I hope you don't get swallowed by the wave, kiddo. I hope you sit on a pincushion for the rest of your life, old man." Tachibana shouted as he increased his speed because there wasn't any weight on his back anymore. Still, he couldn't keep up with Maruboshi and Kakashi, who rushed much faster than him. Eventually, Tachibana was caught in the wave, but only after they broke shore. Panting like he'd run a marathon, Tachibana was on all fours as he glared at Maruboshi, who was looking at him with a smile. Maruboshi patted Tachibana's back before hoisting him up onto his feet as he spoke. "That was some good thinking, Tachibana-kun. If you've got a brain like that, why don't you use it more often? Perhaps you won't be so afraid of death if you use it all the time." Tachibana rolled his eyes and walked away from Maruboshi. "You'll die soon. I hope you stay dead." Maruboshi pretended to be hurt by Tachibana's words, but Tachibana didn't care. "What will we do now, Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura asked with a soft frown, a question that everyone was ready to hear the answer to. Kakashi looked at Maruboshi, who gave him a hand signal that no one recognized, causing him to sigh audibly before he explained, "We'll wait here until backup arrives." Tisk. They still won't leave. What did they think they are? Immortal sages that can't die. Tachibana complained mentally, but outwardly he showed a smile. "Are we going to make a boat or something until they arrive?" Tachibana commented casually, trying to throw a wrench in their plans, but Kakashi easily swept away his concern. "No, I'll be training all of you to be able to walk and run on water like Tachibana-kun. Then we can infiltrate Land of Waves better." "Whoa, I'll be able to do that. I thought that was some super secret technique." Naruto was the first one to be amazed and with his bright childlike smile, brought the group's mood up. Tachibana, who wanted to relax since he'd already learned how to perform water walking, was forced to learn how to hunt and cook meals in the wild with Maruboshi. They camped the night, but with Naruto and Sasuke competing with each other to see who could climb the coconut tree the highest, no one got a good night's sleep. Kakashi was missing from the second day and Tachibana assumed he'd gone on to infiltrate or spy on the happenings of the Land of Waves. A curious thing for Tachibana was that since Sakura had already mastered tree walking and water walking before the two boys, Maruboshi took to teaching her about genjutsu. Tachibana was forced to learn along with her, but he didn't mind it as much because he found it a great addition to his toolkit. During this time, as Team 7 trained hard, Tazuna became tense. Everyone had seen him sitting at the shore to gaze at the vast sea separating them and the Land of Waves throughout the day, but nothing anyone did calmed him except Maruboshi's special wine. By the end of the third day of them waiting at the border, Naruto and Sasuke had learned how to water walk proficiently. So quick. Tachibana cursed. Where did Naruto's disadvantage in controlling chakra because of the Kyuubi go? Thankfully for Tachibana, who didn't want to hunt in the forests again, their reinforcements arrived by the end of the third day. They were all shinobi wearing masks and remained hidden in the forest with only a single one of them walking up to Maruboshi. Anbu. Tachibana noted, since they seemed to treat Maruboshi with courtesy he wouldn't expect from the root member. Kakashi arrived at nightfall and from his blue aura that spread to Maruboshi once they spoke, Tachibana guessed that they'd realized just how bad the situation actually was. I guess they've decided to go on that stupid suicide mission. It feels helpless to be a seer and be able to do nothing about a future you've seen. What do you think, system? Will some sort of a miracle happen and save Maruboshi-sensei and Kakashi-sensei? The host knows the answer well. Closing square bracket. Ha. 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 Very funny. Is there really nothing I can do? The system stayed silent, leaving Tachibana to contemplate his thoughts. So the question remains. I've to escape from the madness of this mission during the chaos of the fight that'll happen tomorrow in such a way that no one suspects me of abandoning my comrades. Is it too late to say I want to retire from my shinobi career and become a royal once again? I almost regret becoming a shinobi. After a 3-hour walk over the sea between the land of fire and the land of waves, Tachibana and the rest of Team 7 were about to scale a cliff along with Maruboshi, who was leading their mission. Tazuna was on Tachibana's back and was worried about what they were doing. Maruboshi and Kakashi had worked last night to create a simple plan to rescue Tazuna's family. The plan involved infiltrating the village undetected while Kakashi and the Anbu distracted the several guards from Kumogakure. With Maruboshi and the rest of Team 7 ready to intercept any attacks, Tachibana was supposed to follow Kakashi's directions to rescue Tazuna's family. While Tachibana would go to rescue his family, Tazuna would reach a meeting point he had set up with his closest friends so that they could instigate a timely rebellion to take back control of the Land of Waves from the faction currently in charge. It was a three-pronged plan whose parts were deeply intertwined for a sure chance at success. But because of its simplicity, everyone had chosen to go through with it. Having scaled the cliff, Tachibana gave one last glance at Maruboshi and Team 7 before giving his last piece of advice: good luck. He felt very uncomfortable seeing Maruboshi to what would likely be his death, but over the last few days, he'd already come to terms with not being able to do something against fate. If only more people were like Beyonders, using their head to understand that fate is not a thing to be trifled with. You don't need to worry about me. I'll be fine, Maruboshi explained as he gave Tachibana's head one last ruffle before leaving with Team 7. With Tazuna on his back, Tachibana began to follow Kakashi's directions to reach the bunker where Tazuna's family was being kept. Eventually, as they arrived at a crossroads in the forest, Tachibana let Tazuna down and spoke to him. This is where Kakashi-sensei said you leave. Am I right? Tazuna looked around and once his eyes landed on the faraway bridge he nodded quickly. Tachibana was about to leave after his nod but stopped when Tazuna held his hand. Tazuna's eyes turned delicate looking at Tachibana nervously. Please keep my family safe. Especially, my grandson, he's the last part of my son that I have alive. With a forced smile, Tachibana nodded and explained, I'm sure I'll be able to keep them safe. I've already divined the possibility of danger and didn't notice any problems. The words seemed to have calmed Tazuna a little since he nodded before letting go of Tachibana's hand so that he could vanish away into the forest. Away from Tazuna, Tachibana looked at the small bunker in the distance. I volunteered to safeguard Tazuna's family so I could avoid all the action. I just hope nothing goes wrong at the last second. There were 2 shinobi guarding it but they were only genin. Even then Tachibana didn't take the situation lightly. He quickly activated spirit vision to check for any hidden enemies, and once he didn't find any he sneaked around until he was on a thick branch right above the bunker. His ability to be light on his feet like a clown helped him avoid making any noises while walking on the tree, and his sharp intuition as a seer helped him choose the right branches that would not creak under his weight. Why are there only 3 people here? I can see the lady, she appears to be resting. But what about the grandson? Did he die? Was he killed already? Pulling out a kunai, Tachibana stood on guard while soundlessly standing upside down from the branch of the tree. The genin hadn't discovered Tachibana's presence until now and were busy admiring the scenery or drawing random things into the dirt with their toes. Tachibana soundlessly dropped down with his hands extended as he lodged 2 kunai into the heads of the guarding genin shinobi. The genin died even before they could realize what had happened, and Tachibana then moved to open the bunker door using a key that was on one of the genins. They had nothing special on their bodies apart from a few kunai and shuriken, but he took all of it. The heavy door of the bunker opened slowly with a loud groan after some effort on Tachibana's part, and in it was a woman who was quite scared of him. Calm down, Tsunami-san. I'm here from Konoha, on behalf of Tazuna. We're here to save you and your son. May I take you to a safe boat that is just offshore? The lady looked surprised for a few seconds, but she quickly calmed down and moved to the other bed in the room. She shook the small mass on the bed but it wouldn't move. Inari. Now's not the time to play. We need to leave. Quick. But the little boy just wouldn't move, Suddenly however when Tsunami tried to drag the little boy and wake him up she found herself clutching a bundle of blanket. Inari. The boy wasn't in the bed in the first place. He'd escaped using a vent on the wall. Nari. Tachibana quickly calmed down the panicking woman before she could run out of the bunker and go searching for him. Tsunami-san. Please hold on. I will take you to the boat offshore first to keep you safe. I'll return for Inari after th. But Inari could be doing anything. It could be dangerous for him. What if he got caught in some trap? What if Shinobi from Kumo discovered him? Please try and understand me Tsunami-san, I promise to go after your boy as soon as you're safe. I'm sure you don't want him to return to you dead, do you? Please let me take you to safety and I'll make sure to bring him back. I promise. Tachibana looked into Tsunami's eyes and held her hand firmly to induce a semblance of peace and confidence into her. Tsunami nodded and Tachibana quickly guided her to the secret boat that Kakashi had hidden in a storage seal behind large rocks on the beach. Please remain calm Tsunami-san, I will return with Inari as soon as possible. Please find him, Tsunami pleaded. Tachibana nodded and asked her, Tsunami-san, do you have on you anything that belonged to Inari? I can use it for my summoned dogs who can help track him down. Tsunami thought for a few seconds before she nodded and explained, in the bunker, you'll find a muffler. It used to belong to his father but since he's passed away, Inari wears them almost always. Tachibana went back to the bunker and located the mufflers before using them to find Inari using divination. Tachibana picked up a broken branch and held it casually before using cogitation to enter a dream-like state in which he mumbled the sentence. Where did the boy who wears these mufflers go after escaping from the bunker using the vent? 7 times. Letting the stick fall, Tachibana noted the direction it fell in. The bridge. What a troublesome kid. I need to meet up with Team 7 anyway, this will make a good excuse for why I didn't return to the battlefield as quickly as possible. Inari-kun, I hope you remain a troublesome kid for a little longer. Following his guiding stick Tachibana looked at the village that he'd walked up to. It was eerily silent with no people walking around, the hawkers' stalls were mostly closed and even the ones that remained open were empty. It looked like a ghost town. And if not for the loud sounds of metal clashing against each other and the occasional explosions that Tachibana heard he was ready to believe it. Tachibana used his acrobatic skills to walk over walls and reach the top of houses to scout the situation better. 3 fights were taking place at the point where the bridge began from the Land of Waves. One was between the villagers and Gato's men inside the village borders. The second fight was between Haku and Team 7 taking place very near the bridge. The third and last fight was between Kakashi, Maruboshi 6 Anbu and a mix of 7 Chinins and Jonins along with Zabuza which was taking place on the bridge itself. The enemy was a mix of Kumo and Kiri Shinobi. The Kumo Shinobi can all proficiently use the lightning cloak jutsu. Kakashi, Maruboshi and the Anbu worked overtime to prevent the Jonins from slipping by and attacking the normal crowd of villagers and Team 7. While the Shinobi from Konoha focused on saving and conserving their chakra for sure-hit attacks, the Kumo and Kiri Shinobi focused on giving everything they had to end the fight faster, because once the Jonin and Anbu fell, the kids wouldn't be hard to defeat. If only there was a long-range attack jutsu I could have sniped and helped them out without interfering with the fight. Come to think of it, why don't Shinobi use bows and arrows? Or guns? I get not many Jonin Shinobi would be affected by it, but most Genin and Chunin. They'd probably topple like dominoes. And if caught off guard I'm pretty sure even Jonins would have difficulty saving their lives. Performing divination once again, Tachibana spotted Inari running in one of the streets. He was running towards a fight between the villagers and Gato's men. Does he want to kill Gato because he killed his father? Tachibana frowned and immediately used the body flicker jutsus to chase after Inari. Sakura looked at the ice mirror dome that had surrounded her and her 2 teammates. In the mirrors was the man who had sacrificed an arm to save Zabuza who Tachibana had tricked into confusion last time to use explosive tags to escape from. Sakura had explosive tags this time too, she'd bought them from Kakashi out of precaution, but using them now without knowing which mirror of the icy dome held the real body of the man was risky. Not only would doing so reveal her plan, but it would also reduce the amount of explosive tags she had. "Come out and fight like a man, you coward," Naruto shouted in exasperation while Sasuke did his best to pay all his attention to Haku's movements. He'd already unlocked a single Tomo Sharingan during the earlier Senbon barrage when he sacrificed his body to protect Sakura. "Sasuke-kun, I have a plan," Sakura whispered, causing Sasuke's ears to twitch. Using a signal, Sasuke informed Naruto to keep Haku distracted, so he did the only thing he could. Naruto used the multi-shadow clone jutsu to spawn tens of clones inside the mirror. Haku immediately attacked using Senbon, but the few seconds Naruto bought for Sasuke and Sakura was enough for them to exchange the plan. Sasuke went back to focusing on Haku's movements while Sakura pulled out a few plain kunai. Naruto began to attack the mirrors once again while making sure to protect Sakura and Sasuke using clones so that they could carry out the plan. Tachibana caught Inari's hand just as he was going to enter the fray with the other villagers who were standing up against Gato and his lackeys. Inari quickly became scared of being caught by the enemy, but when he saw Tachibana dragging him away from the villagers and Gato, he shouted as loudly as he could, "Let me go." But before the words could escape his mouth, Tachibana stuffed the muffler he was holding into it. Inari quickly tried to spit out the muffler and bite Tachibana's hand, but Tachibana simply held the boy upside down before using the body flicker jutsu to run away. "Well, now I just have to waste time running to and from this point to the boat, and I'm sure everything would have concluded by the time I'm back." As Sasuke did his best to track Haku, Naruto had his own idea. "If I can't defeat you by breaking one mirror, I'll break all the mirrors," Naruto shouted before performing the hand seals for multi-shadow clone jutsu again as he made enough to spare 10 of himself for every mirror in the dome. The first 5 jumped at their respective Haku, who just tossed out a few Senbon and blew them up, but the real deal was when the remaining 5 who were hidden behind the first forcefully punched outward. "This is useless. You can't do anything to me. Just die peacefully. It's the least I can do to unprincipled shinobi like yourselves from Konoha," Haku stated plainly, before shooting more Senbon that dispelled the clones. The moment Naruto forced Haku to perform a large-scale attack, Sasuke with his Sharingan picked up on which mirror Haku actually was inside of. He then quickly used hand signs to point to a particular mirror. Sakura's eyes firmed as she formed a simple hand seal and threw out a kunai attached with a lit explosive seal. While in Sasuke and Naruto's vision, the kunai was alone with a burning explosive tag in it. In Haku's vision there was a kunai with a burning explosive tag dedicated to each mirror. She'd used genjutsu to make Haku think so. "Crazy girl," Haku shouted in a hurry as he dispelled the ice dome technique to escape quickly from what looked like a kamikaze attempt. As soon as the dome vanished, Sakura pulled a thin string attached to the kunai and directed it at Haku, whose body was now out in the open. B B B B B B B boom mm. The explosive seal burst, but that wasn't all that Sakura had planned. As soon as the first seal exploded, Sakura tossed in 2 more kunai with explosive seals burning on it. Haku quickly created an ice wall to block the attack, but after the 2 explosive tags burst, a third plain kunai penetrated through the cloud of steam and smoke before it lodged right into Haku's neck. Choking on his own blood, Haku collapsed onto the floor as he looked one last time at Zabuza before collapsing onto the bridge and dying. Seeing Haku die, Zabuza froze for a second, which Kakashi expertly used to slice off an arm, but before he could do anything else, Zabuza exploded with unbelievable speed towards Team 7. Kakashi followed, but he was one step behind. Zabuza's killing intent had frozen the entirety of Team 7. Maruboshi on the other hand was becoming more burdened while handling the fully powered up Kumo and Kiri Shinobi, who used Kakashi's absence to double down on their attacks. Just as Kakashi caught up to Zabuza in an attempt to stop him, he froze and a head rolled down onto the bridge, spilling blood everywhere and causing the hearts of several people to sink. Team 7 looked on in absolute shock and horror as Zabuza cleaned his blade after slicing off Kakashi's head. His eyes were reddened and looked maddened with grief, yet he calmly cleaned his blade by flicking away the blood on it before turning towards the trio of Team 7. Zabuza had used the threat of going towards Team 7 to finish them off to fake losing an arm by using the water clone and transformation jutsu. He then finished off Kakashi when he was at his weakest since he had let his guard down to protect Team 7. The Anbu and Maruboshi's face fell as he witnessed Zabuza's ruthlessness, but the Jonin and Chunin around them were only bolstered further. With one less enemy to fight, Zabuza turned around and looked at Team 7 who stood frozen, rooted to their spots. Tears showed up in Naruto and Sakura's eyes, while Sasuke's hands trembled as a terrible memory surfaced in his mind. Suddenly, a reddish aura began to rise from Naruto's body as his eyes changed colors from a fluorescent blue to a deep shade of crimson. He grew long fangs as his nails sharpened. Before Sasuke and Sakura could recognize what was happening, Naruto was already flying towards Zabuza, who quickly blocked Naruto's advance with his blade. Except, Naruto's claws caused sparks to appear as they clashed with Zabuza's blade. Zabuza was startled by the weight behind Naruto's rapid attacks, but he quickly kicked Naruto's stomach to push him and create a little distance between them. "I've seen people like you before, fought one even," Zabuza muttered. Who'd have thought Konoha would let their Jinchuriki roam so freely out of their village? Zabuza sped towards Naruto, who looked like he'd lost his mind as he growled like an animal before jumping in Zabuza's direction. Sasuke watched in amazement as his one-tomo Sharingan barely caught onto Zabuza's and Naruto's movements. They clashed several times in a single second, with Zabuza using his sword and Naruto his nails. "It was you three that killed my partner. Don't think I'm going to let you go so easily." Zabuza hailed and increased the ferocity with which he was attacking Naruto. Zabuza performed a wide slash which Naruto jumped over, after which Naruto performed the shadow clone jutsu to create two more copies of himself who pincered Zabuza. But Zabuza escaped by creating a water clone to escape it by pushing him out of their range. Except Naruto's clone's mission wasn't Zabuza in the first place. Naruto used his clones as a distraction to aim directly for his weapon, which he stole right out of Zabuza's grasp with a sharp animalistic tug. But it seemed like Zabuza had planned for exactly that to happen, since as soon as Naruto held the sword, Zabuza regained the offensive by stepping close to Naruto with a kunai. "You really think the only way I have to attack you is with my blade?" Zabuza taunted before stabbing Naruto's guts with the kunai. To Zabuza's shock, however, Naruto made some distance between them and pulled out the kunai with his free hand. The wound the kunai should have generated vanished within seconds as if it was never there. Left with nothing but a few kunai and shuriken, Zabuza became open to enemy strikes, which one Anbu member fully used. Wood release, seed of the spike tree. A wooden kunai flew at Zabuza at a blinding speed, which he tried to defend against by turning around, but he was too late. The kunai pierced his chest before rapidly mutating to form a small tree of spikes that grew from inside his body and rooted him to the spot by lifting him up on a thorn branch. Zabuza looked at himself in his last breaths, blood leaking out of the various places his body was impaled. His gaze then fell on Haku, who was long gone as he finally let go and died. The other Kumo and Kiri Shinobi instantly became surprised by the mysterious Anbu member who could use wood release and doubled their efforts to take him down, but Maruboshi got in their way. Leaf ninja art. Yanagi. Maruboshi chanted as his blade moved like a leaf, reflecting the bright afternoon sunlight off of it, creating a glimmer in the eyes of the Kumo and Kiri Shinobi who glanced at it. Before any of them realized it, they were trapped in Maruboshi's genjutsu, and with the heightened speed of his body flicker jutsu and the help of the other Anbu members, they reaped the lives of 3 Chunin and 2 Jonin. The fight after that was easy since the remaining Kumo and Kiri Shinobi were both outnumbered and low on chakra. Finishing the fight, Maruboshi immediately rushed towards Kakashi, whose body was being looked after by the Anbu member who could use wood release. Team 7 had already arrived by Kakashi's body and Naruto had calmed down, exiting his enraged state. That was when Tachibana arrived at the bridge. He looked at Kakashi's lifeless body from a distance as an unwilling expression took on his face. But at the same time, he had a different thought. But Maruboshi survived. Maybe I can change something. No, I'm too weak to change anything actively. The only way I can even think about changing fate is by growing stronger to fool it to some extent without suffering extreme consequences. Naruto couldn't look at the dead Kakashi anymore and burst out crying like a child as Tachibana comforted him by simply staying by his side. With nothing he could do, Maruboshi left Kakashi's side and reached the Kumo and Kiri Shinobi, trying to see if there was any information on them that he could report back to the Hokage. Tachibana, who was wondering why Maruboshi hadn't died when he'd seen him heavily wounded in his vision, got his answer at that moment. Maruboshi calmly bent down to check the body of a Kiri shinobi, but as soon as he came close to checking his pockets, the shinobi's eyes opened and his hand, which was holding a kunai, stabbed right into Maruboshi's chest. The Anbu, who were instantly sent on alert, sliced through the man's chest with their tanto or kunai, but that was when they realized why the man hadn't died the first time around, even though his flak jacket was scarred. He was of the Hazuka clan. He used the hydrification technique to turn his body into water as soon as the swords made contact with it before jumping off the bride and vanishing into the tumultuous sea below. The Anbu rushed after him and found him trying to make a hand seal, but when nothing happened because of it, the shinobi ran away by merging with the sea. No way. Tachibana's heart skipped a beat as he rushed towards Maruboshi. Maruboshi clutched his chest and lay on the floor as Tachibana looked at him with lightly tear-filled eyes. Haha, Tachibana-kun, I guess you were right. Maruboshi calmly spoke as he did his best to keep his lungs from drowning in his own blood. I told you that you'd die, but you just wouldn't listen to me. Tachibana shouted in a whisper since he was trying hard to control his expressions and maintain a smile. Perhaps, but I have no regrets. Maybe one, I don't get to see you become the greatest shinobi ever. You old fool, stop talking. You'll only die faster. Haha, cough cough, don't worry about it. I only have one last thing to teach you about. The will of fire that I've used to protect the village for so long. I want you to carry it on. I hope you protect Konoha and let it become the shining tree it once was. Tachibana's eyes widened. So you knew about it? Tachibana asked, reading between the lines. Of course. I've seen it change through my own eyes. I'll do my best, Tachibana said, not promising anything. He wasn't even a proper genin yet. Thinking of transforming an entire village for the current him could only be described as a dream. Then that's enough. Cough cough cough. Maruboshi nodded before he said his last words, as long as you do your best. Fate will do the rest. Tachibana held Maruboshi's hand as he closed his eyes and finally breathed his last. Tachibana didn't know how long he'd been contemplating his decisions by Maruboshi's side. But it was only after Naruto came over to fetch him that he rose and allowed the Anbu members to take away Maruboshi's body to store in a scroll. Tachibana looked at Maruboshi's body one last time before the Anbu sealed it up. So he walked to the closest Anbu member and handed them a stack of papers. These seals were plastered all over the underside of the bridge. The Anbu looked at the paper and became puzzled for a second before he remembered what the Kiri shinobi, who was part of the Hazuka clan, had tried to do before he merged with the sea. These are explosive tags. Yes. Tachibana nodded before walking away and sitting down with Naruto and the rest of Team 7 as they waited for orders to be delivered. Since the genin had just been through the shock of losing their teachers, the Anbu kept them out of handling Gato and his men as they quelled the villagers by tying Gato up for the villagers to decide his fate. While sitting and waiting, each member of the genin squad was lost in their own world. Sakura wondered about how easily it was to lose life as a shinobi, and Sasuke wondered if he'd be able to kill his brother if he was weaker than Kakashi and he still died. While Naruto blankly tried to piece together the bits and pieces he remembered through the sheer rage he felt for Zabuza when he killed Kakashi. Tachibana was staring at his system screen, which had a new notification for him. The host has avoided the worst possibility by preventing the explosion of the bridge and letting all of Team 7 die. Closing square bracket. Hence, as a reward, the host gets 10 contract scrolls to contract with creatures that roam the spirit world. Closing square bracket. System: do I have to conduct a ritual like climb to summon messengers and then make contracts with them for payment? The host is right. Closing square bracket. I see. What functions do these spirit messengers have in the world of Naruto? The spirit messengers can deliver letters to anyone's chakra they know about irrespective of their location. If the host successfully makes a better contract, the spirits can also protect the host in times of danger. Closing square bracket. Tachibana sighed mentally as he read the system statement. Do I just say they are my summoned beasts that I've signed a contract with if I use them in front of someone else? I guess that'll have to do for now. Tachibana looked at the system exclusive inventory and examined the contract scrolls. He could easily understand what was written in it even though he didn't know the language. Are you translating what's written in it for me? Yes. Closing square bracket. I see. Everyone spent 2 more weeks helping with the completion of the bridge and Tazuna named it Hiro no Hashi, meaning the Gray Bridge, in remembrance of Kakashi and Maruboshi who both lost their lives protecting the bridge and had ash-colored hair. Team 7 had all gained a little bit of their smiles in the meantime since Tachibana had enlisted their help to work hard and act like a clown to entertain the villagers of the Land of Waves. Tachibana enlisted Team 7's help not only to distract them from Kakashi's death but also because the Anbu were constantly monitoring Naruto since news of him being the Jinchuriki had escaped with the Kiri Shinobi who used the hydrification technique to escape. Using the Anbu to watch his acts as a clown, Tachibana quickly digested what little of the clown potion was left. Now he just wanted to go home and drink the next potion in his home in peace. Tachibana-kun, what are you going to do now that? Naruto asked but he didn't have the heart to continue his sentence. It depends on the Hokage. I will listen to whatever he tells me to do next. Tachibana said calmly. It wasn't like he would reveal his next plans to Naruto. And even if he wanted to, he wouldn't have told him when the Anbu were constantly watching him. Why don't you join our team? Naruto asked loudly causing even Sasuke and Sakura to pay attention to Tachibana's answer. Tachibana had a thinking face for a few seconds, but unlike how everyone expected him to be thinking about Naruto's proposal, he was thinking something else. How do I reject him? Can I even reject him? I don't want to get dragged into another ridiculous mission like this one. But I will only be able to grow stronger as long as I face such difficult missions since they'll be the ones where I can act against powerful enemies and digest my potions the most. But Yamato's right here. I think I know what to do. Tachibana looked at Naruto for a few seconds as if he was analyzing something before he said, I want to start a new department in the village. Tachibana's answer threw everyone in Team 7 off guard. Even Yamato who was leading them back to the village while the other Anbu stayed back to prevent other shinobi from occupying the Land of Waves again. Yamato with his Anbu mask still on asked, what department do you want to set up Tachibana-kun? Yes, I want to know too. Naruto shouted. Well, I wondered why there wasn't a department in the village researching new jutsu. I mean if we knew more jutsu wouldn't we be able to defeat our enemies more easily? Like the hydrification technique that the Kiri Shinobi used to catch Maruboshi sensei off guard and kill. Ah, Yamato nodded understanding Tachibana's request even though it was poorly worded, so he did his best to explain, the village already does that. They do. Well, not exactly as you described it, but something similar. Creating new jutsu is extremely hard and involves a lot of effort and time to make sure it doesn't damage the body when it is used. So while the village does not directly research jutsu, we do examine the corpses of our enemies to learn the pathways they used the most to understand the jutsus they used and decipher them. How do I join them? Tachibana asked quickly. Although it is not exactly hard to join the department that researches jutsus, you need to be a good chunin to have a chance. How does one become a chunin? Tachibana asked even though he knew. A chunin exam happens twice yearly and is held by a different village each time. The next one happens in 3 months and will be held by Konoha. If you have completed 20 D rank missions and 3 C rank missions by then, you can participate in it to gain the chance at a chunin promotion. Before Tachibana could say anything else, Sasuke questioned, "Can I gain access to higher ranked jutsus if I become a Chunin?" "Yes, you can access most B-ranked jutsus by becoming a Chunin." That was when Sakura asked Yamato her doubt, "How can I become a medical ninja?" "Oh, the Konoha hospital is another department in Konoha just like the one that researches new jutsus. They also require you to be a Chunin before you can be trained to become a full-fledged doctor." Tachibana then looked at Naruto and asked, "Are you going to participate in the Chunin exam with your team Naruto?" "Yes, I'm going to become the Hokage. And for that, I need to become a Chunin." Tachibana nodded and then questioned Yamato, "Can I enter the Chunin exams alone?" Yamato stared off into the distance for a few seconds before speaking calmly, "It is not unprecedented to take the Chunin exam alone if you match the required qualification, but it is deemed too risky to do so." "So it's possible." "Yes. In fact, Kakashi became a Chunin when he was only 6 years old. And he did it alone." Yamato explained, much to the shock of everyone on Team 7. "Then if you and your teammates don't have a problem, I'd like to join your team for the next few months Naruto." "No problem." Naruto cheered without even asking Sasuke or Sakura, causing the pink-haired girl to punch his head while shouting, "At least ask us before you make decisions, you stonehead." "I see," Hiruzen said with a slight nod as he heard Yamato's report about the situation in the Land of Waves. He then took a deep puff of smoke from his smoking pipe and looked at the 4 genin that had gone on the mission and had luckily survived. "We shall hold a funeral for both Hatake Kakashi and Maruboshi Kosuke in 3 days." All the genin had tears in their eyes, but they didn't let them fall. "Yamato, please remain here, the rest of you may leave." Yamato nodded while the genin left the Hokage office, each taking their own way back home. "Yamato, would you be able to handle it?" "Me Hokage-sama. But, you're the best candidate Yamato. Although you cannot teach Sasuke everything about the Sharingan, you can still seal the Kyuubi in case Naruto gives into its influence as he did in the Land of Waves mission." Hiruzen paused for a moment before explaining further. "And given the information leak, I don't think you need to stay in the Anbu anymore. It would be better for you to handle Team 7. Yamato thought briefly before nodding, "I shall do so then Hokage-sama. Thank you for entrusting me with such an important mission. Don't worry about it. I plan for them to participate in the upcoming Chunin exams and I want you to train them till they are ready." "Yes Hokage-sama. I will do it. You may leave," Hiruzen said, and with one final bow towards him, Yamato left the office to go to the Anbu headquarters where he would hand over his mask and resignation. "Give me the Jinchuriki Hiruzen." A voice spoke out of the shadows of the room. Hiruzen turned towards it, only to find a one-eyed man looking sternly at him with focus and fervor. "No Danzo, this is not possible. I've already told you I cannot give Naruto to you. The village needs more shinobi in the light, especially after 2 of the most respected shinobi in Konoha were just killed because of a spy in our midst. You've failed in your task." Danzo frowned as he spoke angrily, "That was not my failure Hiruzen. I need more shinobi to support the burden of tasks you've thrust upon me. If you give me the Jinchuriki I will be able to train him so that he can become a weapon for the village." "No Danzo, I'm the Hokage and my words are final." Danzo frowned but then spoke his true reason for coming here, "Give me the boy who can predict the future. I will turn him into the perfect weapon." Hiruzen thought for a while as he puffed smoke from his lips before he said calmly, "Yamato has reported that he wants to research ninjutsu. We can discuss him once he becomes Chunin. Until then let him form a bond with Naruto." Danzo almost smiled because Hiruzen didn't fully reject him, but he contained his happiness as he put on an angry facade as he left without a word after shouting, "You'll regret this Hiruzen." Near the forests of Konoha in the lone Senju home, Tachibana made sure there was no one in his direct line of sight using his spirit vision as he entered the bathtub and called out to his system. "Is the host ready to consume the Sequence 7 Magician Potion?" Closing square bracket. Tachibana read the statement and closed his eyes. He thought back to his time as a Sequence 8 clown. About how he helped the village orphanage kids have fun even while he recognized how they were in danger. He thought about the mission he'd gone on with Maruboshi to recover kids kidnapped by the samurai of Land of Iron and how he killed their leader by pretending to be a clown in front of him and the bandits. He thought about the various times in his mission in the Land of Waves when he had to suppress his fears and sadness to put on a smile as if nothing in the world could upset him. To be a clown is to follow fate's wishes while smiling to hide one's sorrows. Yes, I'm ready to consume the Sequence 7 Magician Potion. A small vial appeared in Tachibana's hands. It was filled with a liquid that had 3 parts to it. Each part was colored in 3 distinct colors, either gold, red or yellow. Bubbles fizzed in the drink as if it was eager to be consumed. Tachibana uncorked the vial and with a swift gulp swallowed the entire contents of the vial in one go. Almost instantly signs of losing control began to appear on Tachibana's body. His skin wiggled and his eyes and ears started to bleed, but Tachibana quickly used cogitation to control his state and properly allow the potion to integrate with his body. Tachibana remained in the bathtub for a while as he observed the changes within his body and analyzed the information about his new abilities that had been stuffed into his head. Almost instantly, Tachibana could feel all the inflammable objects around him in 30 meters which he could use to ignite a flame and teleport to. He felt an inconceivable closeness to fire. It felt as if flame was and always had been by his side and was his little friend. Getting out of his bathtub, Tachibana walked over to his toolkit and pulled out a simple piece of paper. Then with a flick of his hand, the paper transformed into a solid wooden baseball bat. Then he flicked his hand again and the bat transformed back into a paper before becoming a brick. Interesting. Tachibana then flexed his bones and found they had become a little rubbery. He felt like his bones could bend the wrong ways and allow him to escape things like handcuffs and ropes he was tied to. It would also help him make more precise changes and controls while throwing cards to give them a complex, unpredictable trajectory. With his index and thumb finger extended like a gun, Tachibana aimed at the water in his bathtub and made a simple sound, bang. Suddenly, as if an air bullet had been spawned in, the water in his tub splashed up and crashed loudly. Tachibana took the piece of paper he was holding and crudely tore it in the shape of a human. Then with a simple flick, the paper transformed into a crude clone of his. It looked just like he did at the moment. Tachibana dismissed the clone and then used his new ability to cast light illusions to give himself the smell of roses. He gave himself a modern dress that didn't quite fit in with the world of Naruto and marveled at his ability to do so. Once he was done with the illusions, he dismissed them before ducking his head underwater into his bathtub. And unlike a normal person who would be unable to breathe at this moment, Tachibana was able to perfectly breathe. It felt as if a pipe had been attached to his nose which allowed him to breathe freely. If I'm not wrong, the length of the pipe is 5 meters initially. Tachibana got out of the water and then looked at the kunai in his tools pouch. Now for the final experiment. Tachibana picked up the sharp kunai and stabbed its tip into his thigh. Then bringing his hand on the slightly painful wound, Tachibana dragged it across his body until it reached his finger. The spot on his thigh was perfectly healed while the spot on his finger lightly bled out. How nice. I should be able to save myself in life or death situations if I ever get ganked and need to wait for reinforcements to bring me back to the Konoha hospital. This is it. I've become a Sequence 7 magician. Now I just have to act as one and digest the potion fully. Tachibana, Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura all stood in Training Ground 7 waiting for their new sensei who was going to be assigned to them today. Sakura-chan, do you think our new sensei will be as good as Kakashi-sensei? Sakura's brows twitched when Naruto called her Sakura-chan, but then she softened a little when she heard the name Kakashi. Sakura thought for a bit before answering, I don't know if there are any more free Jonin teachers in the village. Each year only 3 teams are given Jonin teachers because of the shortage of Jonin teachers in the village. So we'll have a Chunin teacher this time. Naruto asked with a soft frown while Sasuke looked disgusted by the idea. Tachibana on the other hand had a contemplative expression. It'll probably be Yamato, will it not? I mean, he was the one that helped Naruto with the Rasenshuriken in missions later in Shippuden. And he's the only other Jonin capable of sealing Naruto if he loses control due to Kurama. Will there be another test for us? Naruto asked again and Sakura shrugged her shoulders, I don't know. Hey, Tachibana-kun, can you divine who our teacher will be? Naruto asked with sparkling eyes. You just want to see the pendulum spin on its own, don't you? Tachibana asked with a knowing smile. Haha, you got me. I mean, it's just so cool. Tachibana shook his head and explained, I can only divine if a particular person will be our sensei or not. I can't predict his name. Is that so? Then can't we just list all the Jonin in the village and try one by one? We could, but do you have a list like that? Naruto frowned and thought hard, but then as if he had a genius idea he shouted, yes. I know where we can get such a list. I'll be right back. But Tachibana caught his collar and prevented him from rushing away. Wait, you don't need to leave. What if our new sensei comes when you're not here? Instead, send your shadow clone to do whatever you want to do. Ah, Tachibana-kun, you're a genius. Why didn't I think of that? Because you're a blockhead, Sakura complained. Naruto quickly created a shadow clone and sent it away wordlessly on its mission to acquire the list. Going back to waiting for their new sensei in the training ground, Tachibana frowned as he thought of something strange. If everything's destined to happen, does it mean I don't have a part to play in it? No, I was able to save the bridge from exploding in the land of waves. But I was incapable of saving Maruboshi-sensei or Kakashi-sensei. Then couldn't I interpret my peering into fate as it showing me my limits? What if I tried to surpass my limits? Would I be able to escape scot-free or would I be required to pay a price? In Land of Waves, I don't think I paid a price while saving the bridge. Tachibana thought hard for a few minutes before he noticed a discrepancy. Was the price Maruboshi? Had I not saved the bridge, would he only be heavily injured and not die? Just like I'd seen his fate. A few tears wrought up in Tachibana's eyes and a tense feeling crept up in his chest, but he kept them well hidden under a practiced smile. No point in mulling over the past now. A sudden swish caught all of Team 7's attention as a shinobi in a green flak jacket arrived in front of the group. While Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura had the same thought, the green flak jacket. He's a Jonin. Tachibana only assured his deduction, so it is Yamato. I guess he is more reliable than Kakashi. Greetings everyone, I'm the Jonin sensei that has been assigned to you and will be guiding you in the future. But before we are officially declared as a team, I want you to demonstrate to me exactly how strong you are. So we just need to beat you down? Naruto asked with burning excitement. Yes, that is all you need to do, Yamato said with a smile that evoked a great sense of danger in the genin. You have until sundown. The four genin looked at each other and simultaneously retreated into the forest surrounding Training Ground 7. When they were a safe distance away from Yamato, who was casually standing in the center of the field, Sakura was the first to speak. Since this is a test to display our talents, why don't we fight in a way that reflects what we've learned in the past month? Everyone nodded since they didn't have any problems with Sakura's statement. We know nothing about him, Sasuke calmly stated, but his meaning was clear. They didn't know enough about him to make a plan that would reliably help them out. But it was at this moment that Naruto exclaimed, "Ah! I have a solution for this." Everyone was curious about what solution Naruto had thought of. He isn't going to just go and walk up to him and be like, "Can you tell me about your abilities, right?" Just as everyone became worried that Naruto was going to rush away, they saw Naruto's shadow clone come back into the training ground. Yamato was confused for a few seconds before he put two and two together and realized it was just a clone. Naruto's clone returned and looked around for Naruto, and he peered out of their bush to wave it over. Once with them, the clone handed Naruto a book which he showed to everyone before dispelling the shadow clone. Bingo book. Sakura was surprised. Surprisingly, Naruto used his brain. Is this a miracle created by a miracle invoker? Tachibana thought with amazement. But unfortunately for him, Yamato is probably not present in it. And Tachibana was very quickly proven right. Naruto flipped through all the pages in the book, but he couldn't find Yamato's picture on any of them. But, I thought. Sigh, it was a good idea Naruto-kun, but don't worry about it, we'll just have to perform a small round to test him out before we mount the real attack. I'm sure Yamato-sensei won't go overboard and defeat us as soon as we attack him. Tachibana said, patting his shoulder so he didn't feel too down. Sasuke and Sakura nodded too. So what's the plan? Tachibana asked and everyone turned to look at him. Huh, what you looking at me for? You were the one that made the plan to defeat the boy with the ice release Kekkei Genkai Tachibana-kun. Naruto exclaimed, causing Tachibana to frown. He then looked at Sakura and Sasuke and they seemed to agree. Fine, I'll make the plan then. Tachibana nodded and thought for a few seconds. Yamato was a softie in the anime. So if we do something shocking we should be able to catch him off guard. Let's do this, since we only want to learn about his abilities and test him out, why don't we fight him with a little force and then pretend like we got killed by him mid-battle? Everyone's eyes widened and they suddenly looked at Tachibana like he was the real villain all along. It's a good plan. It'll let us evaluate him and the shock will also act as a buffer for us to escape, regroup and make a new plan. They spent the next 5 minutes coming up with the details before dispersing into different directions in the forest with a little excitement. This plan is only to test him out, but it's actually pretty good. If he doesn't take us seriously and gets caught in the trap, he'll probably lose. Time to digest this magician potion a little. Rushing out of the woods was Sasuke, who started the attack with a kick. Yamato casually intercepted the kick and deflected it, but Sasuke kept at it. He assaulted Yamato with a bunch of kicks and punches that were mixed with well-timed feints to keep Yamato's attention trained on him. Are you guys seriously planning to take me down with such a straightforward tactic? Yamato asked nonchalantly as he caught Sasuke's leg and pushed him back to create some distance between them. As soon as Yamato tried tossing him back, Sasuke threw 2 shurikens attached to wires to bind Yamato. Yamato dodged them using the body flicker and substitution jutsu, since as soon as the wires wrapped around his substitute, Naruto emerged from behind and bodied the substitute. But with Yamato having already escaped, Naruto hit nothing but a simple log and their plan failed. Yamato blinked unconsciously and when upon opening his eyes he watched Naruto's body explode into a puff of smoke from which a flurry of shuriken and kunai emerged. Yamato deflected them using his own kunai, but after a few clashes, he found something odd about them. A shadow clone. No, this is a genjutsu. Kai. Forming a simple seal, Yamato exploded his chakra to break the genjutsu. But Sakura had already completed the job. A kunai with an explosive seal was flying rapidly towards Yamato. At the same time, 4 of Naruto's shadow clones had grabbed his legs to delay him long enough for the explosive seal to explode. Being a Jonin and a former Anbu member, Yamato's body was strong enough that he lifted Naruto's shadow clones by pulling on their collars. He then tossed the clones at the kunai with the explosive tags, causing the kunai to slow down and explode before it reached him. BBB boom MMMMMMM. Just as Yamato was about to pull off the last Naruto clone on his body, an instinctual feeling of danger arose within him. And he was right, because as soon as he looked down at his legs he found the last Naruto clone performing the hand seals to the fireball jutsu. Fire release. Fireball jutsu. The Naruto clone opened its mouth and a fireball exploded out of its mouth. They transformed their appearances to be that of each other. Nice plan. Too bad I'm a Jonin and not a Chunin. Yamato's expression turned a little serious and he slapped his hands together before spitting out a jet stream of water that was aimed right at the fireball that was being spit out from the mouth of the Naruto clone. The water sizzled under the heat from the fireball and exploded into mist, but Yamato's instincts warned him. No, this is another genjutsu. No way is Sasuke's fireball hot enough to turn a Jonin's water into steam. Yamato exploded his chakra again to break out of the genjutsu, and as soon as he did he opened his eyes to Sasuke about to stab his leg with a kunai. His one Tomo Sharingan was active, indicating that the most recent genjutsu was his attempt at distracting Yamato. As soon as Yamato saw that, he formed hand seals at a blistering pace before Sasuke suddenly felt like his entire body had become heavy as he was forced to the ground. Yamato explained, Earth release, added weight rock technique. Before Yamato could say anything else, however, he found himself assaulted by Tachibana and Naruto, who attacked him while aiming a kunai right at his neck. Haha, why are you trying to kill me? This is just a spar. We're taking this seriously, Yamato-sensei. Don't make fun of us. Naruto shouted. Yamato nodded with a smile, alright. I'll take this a little seriously too then. He grabbed both Naruto and Tachibana's wrists before twisting them and pulling them at each other, making their heads bump together. However, it was at this moment that Sakura made his blinding entry. Sasuke-kun. Sasuke. Is she worried why he's on the grow? Yamato's thoughts froze as he looked down. In his hands were Naruto and Tachibana's dead bodies. Their chests were pierced with the other's kunai, blood dripping as they fell without strength onto Yamato. Blood dripped out of their chests, and fell on Sasuke, who lay at Yamato's feet where his head was cracked open with blood and brain matter leaking. Genjutsu. Yamato cursed. Sakura's ability to use genjutsu is getting annoying. How is her chakra control so good anyway? And the genjutsu so real? He flared his chakra while shouting, Kai. But nothing happened. Yamato's breathing hitched as Sakura reached him and with her kunai drawn shouted, Yamato-sensei. What have you done? You've killed them. Yamato's eyes widened and he looked around himself with shock. I controlled myself. I didn't use this much force, no way. That was when Yamato felt a cool pointed sensation on the back of his neck, and although the sensation felt like a kunai that signified his defeat, it helped relieve his mental stress immensely. You lost, sensei. Tachibana proclaimed as Naruto and Sasuke joined in with their kunai. Sakura joined them in the end too. But Yamato's face darkened. He looked at the four genin around him with a slight sense of injustice. I wanted to be the cool sensei. I didn't even get to display my wood release. Whose stupid plan was this? The trio of Team 7 all looked at Tachibana, who gave them an indignant look. Why are you looking at me like that? You all agreed to this too. And more than anything, Naruto was the one that made the clones so realistic. Who would have thought that he'd make them so realistic? Hey, I just wanted to win. Naruto laughed while rubbing the back of his head, and Yamato cursed all of them in his mind. Calm down, Yamato. Remember, you are the cool sensei. Remember, you are much stronger than them. By the way, sensei, I didn't think you'd be so weak. Naruto started speaking, but then he happened to see the maddened look in Yamato's eyes, so his words fizzled out. Weak? Me? Yamato asked with a soft smile that sent shudders down all the genin's spines. I mean, you lost to 4 genin, Naruto dug his grave deeper. Sakura, Sasuke and Tachibana distanced themselves from Naruto immediately as Tachibana spoke calmly, Sensei, we don't know who that is. We passed the test, right? We're leaving. See you tomorrow. Just as Tachibana turned around to leave, Yamato extended his hand and caught him. Where do you think all of you are going, huh? If you really were scared of the outcome, you shouldn't have done such a stupid thing in the first place. Yamato grumbled, but then ruffled Tachibana and Naruto's hair as he spoke with a well-meaning smile. Let's go to Yakiniku Q. It's my treat for you guys passing my test today. Everyone's eyes widened and they nodded eagerly. Yosha! Naruto shouted, let's celebrate the defeat of our sensei. Yamato nearly cried at that, but then shook his head pitifully as he was dragged by the team who wanted to treat him like an ATM to pay for their expensive meal. Meanwhile, as they all walked towards the restaurant, Tachibana noticed something in his system. Oh. My potion only digested by 5%. Is it because I gained no applause, which acknowledged my performance? How confusing. I need to be able to use my abilities more freely and set up a persona as a magician. I sort of have a plan. I'll tell Yamato once we're finished with our party. As they finished dining with everyone on Team 7 satisfied with the amount of food they'd stuffed into their stomachs, Yamato looked at them all with a little bit of annoyance. There goes my monthly paycheck. How can a human being eat so much food? Why does each one of them eat so much? Thanks, Yamato-sensei. Naruto shouted as Sakura and Tachibana politely bowed and Sasuke nodded. While the trio of Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke left, Tachibana stayed behind to talk to Yamato. Need help cleaning the dishes, Yamato-sensei? Tachibana asked with a good-natured smile. Ha. Ha. Very funny, kiddo. Tell me, why are you here? Do you want me to buy you more food? I'm sorry, I don't got money for that. Unless you're ready to wash the dishes. No way. Tachibana shook his head and then with a little seriousness in his tone spoke calmly. I have this weird feeling each time I'm around fire. I don't really know how to put it into words, but I feel like I can almost touch it. Huh. Yamato was surprised at the topic Tachibana brought out of nowhere. Seriously? Yep. I constantly feel like there's something I can do with fire ever since I've returned from our last mission. But I haven't tried it since it might be dangerous. Yamato nodded as he considered the matter a little before speaking. You want to try it out in my presence? I don't know if it'll be dangerous or not, so I need your help, sensei. Yamato nodded as he spoke. Let's go to Training Ground 7. Okay. Tachibana was doing this because the problem with hiding a flashy ability like fire teleportation was that once someone saw him doing it, they'd think he could be hiding other things too. Which would make them even more curious about his abilities. They might treat him like a yarn ball, trying to pull more string out of him because of their curiosity and leave him with nothing to hide. So Tachibana decided he would reveal a part of his abilities so that he could use some of them freely in front of the others to digest his potion faster. After all, the stronger he got, the more freedom he would get because the fool's powers were unlike any abilities the shinobi world had ever seen. The only thing that required his attention was the schemes other people might cook up to use him before he became truly strong. Tachibana followed Yamato to Training Ground 7 and once there, Yamato pulled out a lighter that he flicked open to light a flame and placed on a random stump. Go ahead and do whatever you feel like doing. If something goes wrong, I'll take you to the Konoha hospital immediately. Tachibana nodded and concentrated on the tiny flame of the lighter. Having never done this before, Tachibana instinctively used his flame teleportation ability as he flickered out of existence. Yamato's eyes widened since for a second he couldn't sense Tachibana anywhere around himself, at least not until the flame of the lighter flared up to be about 2 meters tall, out of which Tachibana walked out completely unharmed. Teleportation, Yamato thought as his eyes grew wide. But true to his role as a sensei, Yamato quickly arrived by Tachibana's side and observed him carefully. Are you hurt anywhere? Tachibana quickly shook his head. No, sensei. I feel fine. I think I have an immunity to fire for some time as long as I walk out of it. I see, Yamato nodded. Then they tested several other things about the ability like his range and speed before they came to a combined conclusion. Tachibana's current range was about 30 meters and he could teleport in under a second, but possibly through more practice he could increase the range and shorten the time it took him to activate and use the ability. Tachibana couldn't take a second person along with him using the ability, but perhaps that could also change later down the line. But Yamato was puzzled. I can't sense him using any chakra when he activates the ability. Is this some sort of special Kekkei Genkai like the Sharingan or the Kurama clan who could use their spirituality to create genjutsu that could affect reality? After their tests, Yamato pulled out a special paper and handed it over to Tachibana. Tachibana-kun, try pouring your chakra into this paper. It is called a chakra paper and will show the elements your chakra has a strong affinity for. Tachibana nodded and poured his chakra into the paper. Unexpectedly, the paper had 2 reactions, one part of it burned to ashes while the other wrinkled. What does it mean, sensei? Do I have an affinity to fire? Tachibana asked, pretending to be clueless. Yes, you are right. You have a strong affinity to fire, but not just that, you also have a very strong affinity to lightning. Fire causes the paper to burn away while lightning causes it to wrinkle. I see. Tachibana nodded. Can I use the flame teleportation technique during missions? Don't worry about the technique, Tachibana-kun, it can't seem to harm you during our tests. You are allowed to use it on our missions. Thank you, sensei. Tachibana nodded before parting ways with Yamato. Yamato quickly visited the Hokage office and explained everything he'd just seen to Hiruzen. Is that so? Hiruzen thought as he took a puff of smoke from his pipe. I see. Tachibana-kun truly represents the Fire Nation. Perhaps the nobility of the Fire Nation used to have a Kekkei Genkei related to fire, which was what made them the rules of this land. Yamato, make sure you help Tachibana-kun master this ability to its best possible degree. Yes, Hokage-sama. Good. I have a mission to delegate to your team. It is a very important mission and is one that will help Konoha immensely in the future. In fact, if not for trying to keep it a secret from the other nations, the mission is being ranked only as an A- ranked mission. Yamato's eyes widened as he heard that. But Hokage-sama. Don't worry, Yamato. The difficulty comes not from the shinobi you will have to fight, but from the secrecy. Yamato gulped and then nodded as he asked, what is the task, Hokage-sama? It is to restore the royal line of the Land of Snow. The regent of the Land of Snow has contacted Konoha with this mission, and has offered us full access to the advanced technological chakra armor that the current tyrant in the Land of Snow has developed. Arming our shinobi with such a machine would save the lives of a lot of our shinobi and would help weaken our strength, which has been on a decline since the sacrifice of the fourth Hokage. I also want to help Naruto develop and understand connections so that he can walk on the path of his dream to become the Hokage someday. Such a bright child is one fit to lead the village that upholds the qualities of the will of fire. Yamato's gaze held a kind admiration for Hiruzen as he said those words, and he quickly nodded. Yes, Hokage-sama, I will do my best to help Team 7 solve this mission. On the other side of the village, Tachibana inside his Senju home looked at the storage seal in front of him. He'd drawn the storage seal himself, and after a couple of tests had determined that it worked just fine like any other storage seal on the market, but was just a little inefficient since his calligraphy skills still weren't excellent yet. But that wasn't what had drawn Tachibana to learn how to draw storage seals in the first place. What would happen if a storage seal stored a jutsu? Could someone store several fireballs over their lifetime and then release it all at once to bombard the enemy with several thousand of them? Why has no one tried this before? Is it not possible? Why? For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.